Geopolitically, we in a field that's for Israel. Wonder, is it real? Rappers acting say they high, say they sippin' pills. Glorify suicide so they get the deals. Big pharma set it up, had to flip the pills. Control the music industry until the scripts get filled. Geopolitically, yeah, we in a field that's for Israel. Wonder, is it real? Took the way you saw the world, then distorted it. Now you think you wanna rock that twirl somewhere orbiting. Theories disproportionate, the truth distorted quick with a forceful grip. They force a misinfo that we absorbing quick. Took the people's signature to mean extorted it. They forging it if news anchors informants who informing them. There's a surplus, but they tell us there are shortages. Credit economy mortgages, dollar that's supported with empty fortresses. But what's important is this: we porting ships, important gifts. Of course it is, but extortion is in accordance with an assortment list of foreign tricks we ignoring, which informing this, informing this. It looked like we were snoring tricks. Pedophilia and the government endorsing it. Yeah, eugenics is exactly what abortion is. You just vilify those insubordinate. Way to matrix engineer, that's unfortunate. Geopolitically, we in a field that's for Israel. Wonder, is it real? Rappers acting say they high, say they sip with pills. Glorify suicide so they get the deals. Big pharma set it up just to flip the pills. Control the music industry until the scripts get filled. Geopolitically, yeah, we in a field that's for Israel. Wonder, is it real? In a world. Hopefully the audio sounds good. If you guys can give me a little feedback. As you can tell, this is the first time with the setup and the new mic. Hopefully the quality is pretty good. This is still StreamYard, so we'll be really upping the quality soon. Nice audio and video, superb. Love it. How's it going, familia? Shouts out to the legends in the chat. My homie Cammy, Austin, Zach, question to answers, Cuddy, Nonprofit Bear, Iron Horse, Bill, Sue, bunch of legends in the chat. My boy Grounded Extracts, check them out. All right, so the title of the stream is why, or more so, does ether matter? Of course, it's meant to be a little witty with the word matter in there. So basically, I'm just going to chat with you guys. If you don't know, I did a stream titled Ether as my return stream. Return from a long time, few months, and I gave a presentation. The link to the presentation is now in the description of that video, and you can check it out yourself. I changed the background to make it where you could read it a little better, and I'll drop the link right now in the chat so you can check it out. I do encourage people, if they're interested in the subject, to check it out. Kind of copy link. Really I digest some of the info and look into it.
and yeah, go from there. So what we basically covered, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna chat with you guys. If you guys got some questions, um, it's just gonna be a chill stream. I'm just gonna chop it up, kind of wrap this up. I have intentions for the stream to be full of gravy, and I'm not going to be harping on a bunch of drama. Hopefully that link works. You guys can let me know. But to get a little bit of housekeeping out of the way, Karen B, who I see is in the chat now. Shout out to Karen B. Her and I are doing a debate on Modern Day Debate next Friday. So that should be cool. And here soon we're finally kind of getting settled in. So I went to Tennessee for a baby shower, and it was like 9 hours of driving, and then met up with some friends in Memphis I haven't seen in a while. Then we did the baby shower the next day. Then I had to load up a storage unit I had, which was super fun. Then we had to drive the U-Haul back all the way to South Carolina. I got it unloaded today. And so now I am back. Figured I'd do a stream. And then hopefully I can get everything set up before tomorrow night with OBS, and we'll have the new stream format. I'll be introducing the new shows. And then we'll get on a schedule where you guys will know what time that I will be streaming. If you guys have maybe suggestions as to times that I stream, but it's pretty much impossible to make everyone happy. Everyone's in different time zones, etc. But anyway, we have a lot of cool stuff coming. So there's that. I covered the #AETHER, and as is predicted, I haven't gotten like real substantive rebuttals to the overwhelming specificity and critique. I've gotten alleged rebuttals, and I'll cover that. And then basically this stream is going to be the last time that I really address kind of like the dramatic nonsense that's going on. I think division's not always a bad thing. And sometimes there has to be a bit of a divide, and some people have to elevate. Anyone that really knows me knows that this mic's a game changer, bro. Everyone that knows me knows that I like to kind of try to keep the peace. I think it's important to have somewhat of a unified front, trying to discuss the nature of where we live, and that's a truth that's very uncomfortable for some people, and it's such a big truth. And a lot of us have prioritized waking people up to that. My motivation for that, of course, is not to be like the flat earther or, like the smart guy that knows about the earth, or to make money, as some would insist. I think it's important spiritually, and I think it changes the way you see the world. And many people claim to believe in a creator, but once you find out about the earth, it's like, whoa, it becomes very real. It's not something you just say. It's like this thing had to be put here, and you start to have an appreciation for where you live, start to take your power back, start to see the magnitude of some of the deceptions. So you kind of cascade into the rest of your life. And I think that that's a beautiful thing, and it's super important. And so that's why I do this. I don't do this for really any other reason. So anyway, let's just gonna get into the subject. And like I said, I'm just gonna kind of chill on screen and chat with you guys. I'll read the chat if you guys have anything specific you want to talk about. But so as to why does the ether matter, let's kind of start and recap a little bit. So what I broke down in the presentation is the critique of flat earthers, amongst other flat earthers, of people talking about the ether, and I'm going to give it a completely fair shake, meaning I'm actually going to say what they're trying to say very efficiently. And then we'll go from there. Okay. So the idea is that what got us into this mess, meaning the lie about where we live, is we were indoctrinated from a young age, and we've been told a whole bunch of stories, and they're conveyed to us as if they are facts. And the word science is thrown around very loosely, where they basically treat it as a religion, a catch-all phrase or word, where people just appeal to the idea of science, science, science. You must be denying the science. You must be a science denier. You must, you're trying to claim all science is wrong. All the scientists are lying. And it was one of the number one tactics used against flat earthers, quote unquote, which I think was a term created to stigmatize, but anyway. And so instinctively, naturally, we fought back against the misuse of the word science. A lot of the deceptions were conceptual quantifications and reifications of the fact the Earth's a spinning, gyrating ball in a vacuum, labeled as science. So, when they talk about the core, being magma and 3,959 miles down, and they claim that a star is 323 light years away, and they make all these crazy claims. They call it science. They look up at the sky, they make up stories, effectively cosmology, and they call it science. And so it is important to acknowledge this. We had to really focus in on what is actually science. And I don't have a problem with that. I think it's important. This is how I've always said it. If you guys watched my tour, you heard it a million times, but we're talking about the world we live in on. The natural world. The study of the natural world is called natural science. We have a very particular set of parameters in which we go about to validate things within the natural world, claims about the natural world, and that is the scientific method and scientific experimentation. And so you have a naturally occurring observable phenomena. So that means you don't just make up a story you don't actually see and then go from there by reifying it. You have an actual phenomena that's real, it's naturally occurring, and you're wanting to explain it. And that's because you're making claims about the natural world. So then what you do is you propose a cause and effect relationship test, also known as a hypothesis, to try to figure out what the cause of that effect is, that naturally occurring phenomena. And then, of course, you manipulate the independent variable, which is your presumed cause within that hypothesis or cause and effect test that you propose, to falsify or verify that it is, in fact, the cause or a cause of the effect. It's important that we know this because a lot of things are claimed to be proven or claimed to be fact, or even they'll say scientific fact when in fact it is not. Okay, so I agree that it is very important. Now, we, of course, cannot science everything that way. And in fact, most things we can't prove scientifically. Now, we can falsify a lot, but it's very difficult to prove, certainly like sole causal agents. Okay. So, and I'm just laying this out for everyone with the whole conversation. It's just important to understand as we progress. So anyway, basically the critique is, well, the ether is not science. It's a religion. And so therefore flat earthers shouldn't talk about it, and it's a fanaticism and blah, blah, blah. Well, the truth is that the ether is proposed to be immaterial. It's an idea that there's this all-encompassing background, meaning to use an analogy, and I'm not big into the semantical games, right? Intelligent people, wise people, they use analogies to convey what they mean to other people. And this is actually how you have intellectual exchange. That's productive. Okay, so we're not going to limit ourselves through stupidity, okay? So it's like if you have a canvas, you have an easel with a canvas on it, and you go to paint on the canvas is the background. You then paint on it. That would be the material world. In this analogy, the ether would be the canvas. Oh, Now you're bringing up matter to say that it's something that's not matter and whatever, bro. You understand that you had the canvas there to paint on it. Of course, we have a material world, and in order for us to have a material world, the material world had to come from somewhere. I mean, something had to exist outside of the material world for it to get here. So we know that by logical deduction. Certainly, once you realize the Earth's not spinning, that means it's geocentric, meaning the center of everything that we observe had to be placed there. If it was placed there, there's something that exists outside of this material world that placed it there or created it, designed it via intelligent design. So we know the metaphysical realm exists. We know this in many ways. We know that we have consciousness, intuition, dreams. And so there seems to be a logical necessity, an interaction between the metaphysical and the material. And like I said, you couldn't have the material world in the first place. Consciousness is not material. It isn't physical. But we experience it in the physical world. It interacts with the physical world. So there is not some rigid line between the two where they cannot intersect. We know by logical necessity that they do intersect. Now, the ether is a framework that goes back a long time. Most people in modern times haven't really heard of it. It's been done away with for many reasons. And it's also had many different versions. If you look back, there's probably at least 20 different versions of the ether that has been postulated. All the way back to the Greeks claiming that their gods lived on a mountain, and up there they breathed the air of the gods, referring to the ether, which is a whole bunch of gravy, honestly, because then you get into Mount Meru in the middle. Actually, side speculation here. It appears that there's a magnetic field on the Earth, which there clearly is. The center is not accessible to matter. So it's as if these metaphysical beings decided to leave that area that isn't accessible. And the story goes they came and they took women and they took them as wives and they did a bunch of stuff. So we'll get into a lot of the gravy like that in other streams. But just to say it's gone back a long way. As you guys can tell, I think I'm trying to not talk so fast. So hopefully you guys enjoy the pace here. So this had become a framework to explain a lot of phenomena: electricity, magnetism, electrostatics, electromagnetic fields, light. It became a framework. And this is actually how we made a lot of progress. This is how we got to have AC generators, induction motors. That's how we have a lot of the stuff that we have now. A lot of the information that we understand now was discovered via this framework. But most people in modern times do not know about it. Now, I proposed in my presentation that you have two primary frameworks that have really ever been proposed as foundations for interpretation of the world, and that is atomism and ether. Now, let's hear the rebuttals here. That's a false dichotomy. Well, I did not say that it is a true definitive dichotomy. It is. You enjoy the fast pace? I'll probably end up speeding up, bro. It is just the two primary ones that have ever been postulated. So it's not, you can't say false dichotomy fallacy when I'm not saying it's literally the only two options. It's just the two primary ones that have been postulated. Now, if you think you got another one, you can go for it. One of the only ones anyone's brought to me is the rope theory, the rope hypothesis, which is that everything is comprised of ropes and their material, but the material can go through other material. It's all comprised of a version of material. So it's still trying to explain the world within the confinement of materialism. And you have the fundamental question of what are the ropes within? Now, most people don't hold to that. And I was specifically engineering the presentation to direct a certain group of people in a train of thought. So anyway, so we have atomism and then we have ether. Those are two fundamental frameworks that have been proposed, the primary ones. Okay, so it's not a false dichotomy fallacy, because if you want to think there's another option, go ahead. So anyway, atomism is basically derived from materialism at its base. That's what it comes from. And so I pointed that out, and you got Democritus, 5th century BC, basically saying that everything is comprised of little indivisible atoms. They have different versions and different compilations of these atoms. They make up the different types of matter that we see. Even emotion is matter. That creation of the universe, or what he would call the infinite void, had no purpose and expands in all directions. Sound familiar? This is the person that promotes atomism. And so, I cover that materialism is the idea that everything that exists stems from matter, and that if it is not materially manifest, it doesn't exist. And so we have people saying this. And so I was pointing out, well, that's derived of materialism, and atomism itself is from materialism. Materialism is one of the dumbest viewpoints that could ever exist. Okay? It's just ridiculously dumb. So a lot of people are like, how dare you call me a materialist and blah, blah, blah. I know that these certain people aren't materialists. They believe in God. I'm explaining that they're promoting a interpretation that is derived from materialism. So all the atheistic, materialistic, nihilistic psychopaths that claim to be scientists nowadays, they literally love this model. That's what they adhere to. Nothing can exist outside the material world. Consciousness is nothing more than like neural exchanges, electricity within your brain. Intuition and dreams are basically a byproduct of that. There's nothing outside of the material world, right? So that's basically. Yeah, sorry, I'm just reading the chat. We got an all-star in here. All right, so anyway, so it comes down to atomism or ether. If we're going to be intellectually honest, those are two fundamental frameworks. Now, atomism is not entirely worthless. We've used it for quantification purposes. We've used it and applied it to stuff like chemistry. And it's given us an ability to try to quantify things, to replicate things for technology. That's how we come up with a lot of technology. We attempt to quantify things, even if we can't actually verify that our model is accurate or reality. We want to quantify it so we can replicate it and create technology. And so in that sense, it's useful. Now, if we're actually trying to understand the world and what's actually going on, well, if we're looking at something that comes from immaterial, as in if there's an immaterial interaction with the material world, and a lot of these, this phenomena that we see comes from immaterial, we cannot quantify it, not accurately. So we can do so for utility, but we can't do so accurately. And so atomism is what we were all taught. You never heard the word ether probably when you were growing up in school. When are you going to have Dave Weiss on your platform? I'll have him on. We were taught about the photons and the electrons and the neutrons and the protons and the deuterons, and now it's all kinds of positrons and anti-electrons. And we were taught this model. They showed you cartoons. They told you that there's this little sphere, and that other little spheres move around within it. And so, again, we were taught all kinds of things within the confinement of materialism, the same exact indoctrination system, curriculum that taught you that. They taught you a bunch of things, which, to put in context, there are a group of people that want to indoctrinate you via curriculum, and they control it. I watched an interview where this guy, he said he was talking to a Rockefeller, and he said, what do you think about women's liberation? He said, oh, like the, women having the right to vote. I think, they earned the right to vote. Now they've earned the right to equal pay. I think that's a good thing. I think that's cool. And Rockefeller said, you're an idiot. He was like, what? Why do you think I'm an idiot? And he said, we did that. Do you want to know why? He said, sure, why? He said, because for one, we could only tax half the population. And for two, it got the children out of the house and into schools where we could indoctrinate them at a much younger age. Okay? And so I'm bringing that up to point out that there is a concerted effort behind the scenes to indoctrinate you as quickly as possible, as efficiently as possible, and as soon as possible. And we were indoctrinated with the idea that the Earth's a tiny speck of dust in the ever-expanding universe of nothingness where everything came from nothing. Lightning struck primordial soup, rocks turned into fish, decided to jump out the water, grow some feet, turn into rats, turn into monkeys, turn into humans. There's nothing special about you. Everything came from nothing. There is no purpose. You're just literally here in this nihilistic, apathetic worldview. Basically, the nihilism is to be expected because that's what it is. And you're going to die. And once you die, there's nothing. You might as well just do whatever you want to. And there can be no such thing as objective morality because everything's random happenstance. Dinosaurs were here, and then an asteroid hit the world. So be scared, though, because you could always die with an asteroid. Ice caps can melt, and all this fear-mongering materialism. And they tried to explain everything with immaterialism. And they told you that, you're a tiny speck of dust. And so when they teach us all these things, and then they also teach us atomism, which is also conveniently within the confinement of materialism, it is of no coincidence that the people that have indoctrinated you have given you all kinds of different frameworks and interpretations and models, and then conflated the models to reality, that they all are, they had the same theme. They're all materialism. So this is where we use logic, right? The way that you are efficiently going to pursue and discover truth is you're going to have to use pattern recognition. A lot of the truthers, the people in this chat, they probably have a higher rate of pattern recognition than the average person. That's why they're truthers. I'm not big on IQ. I hate that I've publicly stated IQs and stuff like that, but they're valuable to an extent. That they measure processing speed and pattern recognition. Pattern recognition is very important for discovering truth. But I don't think it's something that you're just born with. I think that you can grow wisdom and learn how to recognize patterns. Anyway, when we apply pattern recognition here, we're like, wow, you guys keep on telling us these models, and they're all this materialistic nonsense, but it's not reality. But you teach it like it is reality. Now, we'll have a lot of people say, I never thought it was real, and I knew it was just a model, and I've never claimed it was real. You did think it was real when you were young, and that's why they indoctrinate you when you were young. I'm sure there may be an exception. I never really believed space and stuff like that, and I always thought the atomic model was kind of weird. Never clicked with me. So maybe you really didn't think it was real. But the point is, they taught it as if it was real. And if you walk around to the average person and you say, hey, do you know the electron doesn't exist? They're going to say you're crazy. They're going to think you're stupid. They're going to be like, I know there's been an electron since I was in second grade. One of the first things they teach you about. The point is that they teach it to you like it's definitive fact. And we know that they have dishonest intention to mislead you. And why not? Just on a logical stance, you would keep the masses dumbed down if you wanted to control them. It's very simple. So when we begin to look into this, we find out this model isn't real. And so the reason that I pointed this out, I think it's important that it be laid out for people that are on their awakening, their path of awakening, their path of truth, so they can try to make an intelligent decision. And it's up to them, because, this is a philosophical question. You can't science this. These are not things that can be scienced in the natural science sense. The very rigid application, but accurate when it comes to natural definitive claims, I would say. Now, science in the broader sense is the pursuit of knowledge and the process of falsifying things slowly over time. But anyway, this is just a philosophical question, and so you should be able to make an informed decision. We have people trying to prevent that from happening, and that's kind of what sparked that presentation, which I put a good amount of work into. And anyway, so here's what it comes down to, right? It's like, is this claim that everything is comprised of indivisible little particles actually true? And I don't, again, applying pattern recognition, I don't find it to be a coincidence that it's almost synonymous with the globe Earth lie in a certain particular way. And that is, they told you about a model. The globe Earth is not physically proven. You can't, go physically measure it. There's no evidence of curvature. I mean, everything that you ever experienced shows you that the Earth is flat. You can do physical tests and measurements and prove that the Earth is a plane, right? It's a topographical plane. It's not curving, certainly not at the rate consistent with 3959. You can prove it. It's just a model. Now, they've come up with all kinds of ideas, reifying and assuming this model, right? So you look at the sky and they're like, oh, in my model, the Earth's a sphere and it's moving. That way, that's why it looks like the sky's moving. And it's just a model. They taught it to you like it was fact, though, bro. It didn't teach you that it was just a model that could be wrong, and it's just our cosmology of the perfect shape being a sphere because it's philosophy, on effectively, the undertone is religion. They didn't teach you that, right? And so they taught you a model, a conceptual model, and then they gave you math for every little detail and claim about the model. And then they claimed that that represented reality, and it was that the Earth's a physical sphere. And then what they did was they invoked the quantification, the mathematical descriptions, as if it was proof of the model of a physical sphere, proving that it's reality. Now, people have done the same thing with atomism. They've done the same thing with atomic theory. I'm not big into the pedantical, is there scientific theory? Everyone knows what we're talking about. It's called atomic theory. Okay. And they told you that basically the world is comprised of little indivisible particles. And they gave you a model, a conceptual model that was used to quantify, because if it's not little physical particles, how do you count it? How do you count the immaterial? You can't. It's like, basically, like if you look at a pool of water, which is material, we get it. It's an analogy. If you look at a pool of water, can you count the water? So they needed to break it up into little discrete, minute particles so they could count things. So what they did was they told you that this conceptual abstraction, this model of little physical indivisible spheres, particles, that they used to quantify was actually reality. And then what people do is they invoke the quantification that we've mastered over time with consistent observations, and we use them for certain things. They conflate it to reality. So it's the same thing. So if we just apply logic right now, like this doesn't prove one way or the other, but it's not looking good. Okay, so then we get into looking into the truth, and well, what is this ether? Why wasn't I taught about that, and where did it come from? Then you come across stuff like Nikola Tesla, Oliver Heaviside, Charles Proto Steinmetz, just to name a few. And this was the framework for electrical field theory. This is how we figured out electricity and magnetism and light to the extent that we could at least manipulate it more accurately. This is literally what gave us electricity as we know it, and it hasn't really progressed since it's been thrown out. So you ask yourself, well, why was it thrown out? Because if this idea of little physical bombarding particles isn't working, isn't viable, doesn't explain things, why was the ether thrown out? Why don't we go back to the ether? And in my presentation, I give you specifics as to why it doesn't work out, where they say magnetism is the exchange of virtual particles, but virtual particles are not actually anything in reality. They're not the input or output of any experiment. They're nothing more than conceptual abstractions we use to try to make the equations balance out, because they don't work out with our assumption that it has to be comprised of physical particles, because magnetism is not. All kinds of things. We have superposition. We have all kinds of paradoxes. We have like the double slit showing us that the physical particle theory is ridiculous, but people seem to think it proves it. We have all kinds of problems with it. It isn't viable. Admittedly so. Talk to 100 quantum physicists, they'll tell you it's currently inoperable. We don't fully understand it. Richard Feynman will tell you that anyone that claims to fully understand quantum mechanics does not understand quantum mechanics. They don't understand it because there's all kinds of paradoxes. Trying to force particleism on reality backfires in a drastic way, and it keeps getting worse and worse and worse with the more that we observe. So again, the question goes, if it's actually just about being intellectually honest and figuring out what's the most viable system that we can use to try to interpret the world, then how come atomism's been shoved down our throat forcibly, and ether hasn't even been taught to you as a potential postulation? They didn't tell you, look, either the sky moves or the earth moves. They taught you that the earth moves. They didn't teach you that, look, either atomism is true, or some other people said that there was an ether. They don't teach you. They teach you the one they want to indoctrinate you with. This does not prove it in and of itself. It doesn't falsify or verify one way or the other. You can't scientifically prove philosophical questions anyway. Now, what you can do is you can demonstrate them via logical axioms. So anyway, when we go look into it, we're like, this is weird. But then we come across very important information. Now, a lot of us that woke up to the earth, we have known about this. We looked into it, we researched it, we know about it. Apparently, a lot of flat earthers don't know about it. But what happened, and this is just objective, unless you want to just go the route that everything in history is a lie, therefore we can't even have a conversation. And I'm not claiming it's all true, but anyway. So what happened was the framework of the ether was thrown out to save heliocentrism, because that framework within electrical field theory demonstrated that the earth wasn't moving. They did something called Michelson-Morley, where they shot lasers different ways. It was supposed to have it was supposed to be separated a certain amount, because one of the lasers was going against the spin of the earth while the other one was going with it. So it should have taken longer for it to get to the receiver. Of course, light doesn't physically travel, but we'll get to that in a second. It didn't show that. It showed there was some type of movement, but it wasn't what the claim of the earth orbiting around the sun was. So therefore, if that ether was correct, the earth wasn't moving. Now, what Google, like you go to Wikipedia and you read it, it'll say it just debunked the ether. If you go if you go Google, it'll say it just debunked the ether. If you go talk to any of these anti-flat earthers that stalk my channel, like I think there's one in the chat right now, which is super weird, right? Like, I'm such a stupid flat earther, you stalk my channel. If you go talk to them, they will have a script, and their script is, that just debunked the ether. Yeah, that's how we know it's not true. In fact, if you talk about it to a person that knows anything about discussion, they'll just say this. If you Google it, how do we know the ether is not true? They're going to show you Michelson-Morley. So that's interesting, right? Because that's not really what happened. See, the test is called detecting the motion of the Earth through the ether. So it went into the observation with two base assumptions: that there existed an ether, which was defined as a medium to sustain electromagnetic propagation or energy. Thank you for the generous $30 super chat, Tim. Much love. I think I actually saw another one. Oh, oh. Thank you for the $2 super chat, Matter Matrix Mother Triple One Tantra. Okay. So it was proposed to be a medium that sustains electromagnetic energy, because it just seems very illogical on its face that energy could be sustained within nothing, because nothingness does not exist. Now, people will say, well, no, nothing doesn't exist. There's air. And you're like, okay, well, you can get a vacuum chamber. There's still a little bit of air in there. You never get it all the way out, but we still have the same phenomena. Well, there's still air in there. So I guess the air physically expands and fills the whole entire vacuum and still carries all the stuff. So anyway, they knew that was ridiculous. One of the primary things Tesla did was look in vacuum tubes. So he's like, well, there's something else. And it's just logical. There's something that is connecting the immaterial to the material, because it seems like energy comes from nowhere. And I'm going to get into why it matters, but I'm just trying to cover some of the basics. So this is a primary reason that it matters. It was a fundamental framework that gave us some type of viability. Like, it's open-ended. It's an open-ended framework, but it gave us viability. It's like magnetism doesn't come from nowhere. If energy cannot be created nor destroyed, where does it come from? If it can only be transferred and transformed, where does it come from? See, it gave us like a framework of viability to explain phenomena around us, and it was thrown out because it proved that it showed that the Earth was not moving. Okay. And then you go look at ᴄᴏ², and I cover this in my presentation, and it shows that the Earth is that there's a sidereal rotation relative to the Earth. So we know that, we see it, the sky moves, but the question is the sky moving or is it the Earth moving? And ᴄᴏ² and ᴄᴏ²-Morley combined together via interferometry, very precise measurement, shows you it is the Earth that is stationary, and the rest frame absolute frame of reference. Okay. So a lot of people are wondering, like, what's it matter? Like, if this is true, well, we're trying to wake people up to the Earth. Why are you talking about this? Well, you can prove that the Earth is not what they told us without discussing the ether. That is for sure. But for one, no one dictates what I think or what I say, and I would encourage you to be the same way. Self-elected leaders of flat Earth or whatever, that's super lame, super weird, and it's not real, and no one cares. There are millions of flat earthers, hundreds of millions. Okay, we don't have leaders. We broke out of the cult. Okay. Now, if you think there's a certain particular way everyone should be, I mean, that's your own prerogative. But the ether is an additional extension of us waking up, because we realize we don't have to fit within the parameters of all this nonsense of special and general theory of relativity to try to beg the question to our religion that, water bends convexity on the exterior of a sphere spinning in a vacuum and all this nonsense. We don't have to believe that. So we can restart, and we can look at reality for what it is. We have electromagnetic phenomena. It seems to be very important. You can't have electricity without magnetism, right? They're different modalities of the same thing. They're two sides to the same coin. How could you separate them? But people don't know exactly what electricity is or magnetism is in the modern time. They can't even explain it. Well, one of the number one ways that they control us, and when I say they, it doesn't matter who it is. I don't think that you're a slave unless you agree to be one. But there's a power structure of them, and they control us in certain ways. Certainly, if you're complicit. One of the major ways they've got a grasp on pretty much everyone is that we have utility bills, and we think there's no way to have energy without loss, and we think that we have to pay these monopolistic companies to give us the energy. The truth does not seem to be that, though. Nikola Tesla, who gave us the way that we have electricity to this day, like the very way that we use electricity to this day, said that's not true. You can get ether out of the air. It's all around you. I can give the whole world free energy. Just give me some money and give me some time. So it seems interesting that the person that did that gave us what we have today, that built the very electrical society we utilize to this day, told you, no, there's free energy all around you. Now, we actually know this. We can measure it. There's an increase of atmosphere electricity, not atmos electricity, because there's no sphere, and that's stupid, and gases don't bend around shapes. It goes up 100 to 120 volts per meter, equipotential increase. So we have energy. We know that the earth it's called the ground for a reason. It's electric. You're electric. Everything's electric. There's electricity all around us, and everything's intrinsically electrostatic. So we should be able to figure this out. And it's, like I said, it's tied to magnetism. So to try to understand these things and progress, right, for like the betterment of mankind, which that's actually a lot of our motivations, in case you didn't know. Shout out to Cammy, very well said. Thank you, much love. Thank you for the super chat. We just want to actually live in a better world, bro. We want to free people's mind. We want to free people out of this, like, the structure that tries to control them. And this seems to be a big part of the equation. So we want to look into it. We want to understand it. We want to understand magnetism. Now when we look into it, this is crazy, right? 2022, you can go to Stanford, Yale, Harvard, you name it. Appeal to whatever academic authority you want to. They cannot tell you what magnetism is. They say they don't know. And they don't really understand electricity. And if energy cannot be created nor destroyed, where does it come from? They don't know. And they claim that in a vacuum chamber, again, that's not science, because vacuums aren't in the natural world, except like your lungs are kind of create a vacuum, but nature abhors a vacuum. But we can look at demonstrations to gather information, even if it's not a scientific experiment, by the rigid dogmatic application of natural science and the very specific methodology, because some things fall outside of that, right? Like the double slit gives us information. It does. Like the photoelectric effect gives us some information. These things give us information. The vacuum chamber can give us information, right? If we think that that just air alone is the medium for light, then why does light propagate more effectively in a vacuum where there's less air? If there's less air, then it shouldn't work as well if that's what's actually sustaining the light. It shows logically, Occam's razor, it shows that the air actually acts as impedance of the light. Now, light does not travel from point A to point B, but we'll get into that. So anyway, there's all kinds of crazy things. They can't explain magnetism. They think everything's made of physical particles, but magnetism just blows the lid off that whole story. It doesn't work. It isn't the case. It isn't the case. So if it's not the case, then what is it? Now, they've come up with a construct called virtual particles, which I covered in my presentation. And I just covered a second ago. Virtual particles, specifically virtual photons. Weird. So anyway, the point is that there seems to be two different groups of people here. Those that really want to diligently research and figure out what we were lied to, how to better understand the world and maybe apply it. At the least, start to take back our knowledge. That's what you get with flat Earth. It's not like someone comes and gives you $1 million check when you find out about flat Earth. It comes with all kinds of detrimental kickback, in fact. But it's very freeing. It's the knowledge itself that is the power. Knowledge is power. That's what it is. And so we're trying to become more powerful via knowledge. Hosea 4:6, for my people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. Right? I mean, and it's just wisdom in and of itself. It's obvious. Okay? How dare you buy that Toe Rogan microphone? Oh, you think because the toe uses it, he has like a monopolistic control on it? So we just want to understand it. We want to increase our knowledge. And that's not a bad thing. Now, I do agree that some people make really definitive claims or whatever, but look, I'm not their dad. I'm not your dad, bro. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's something to be said that if you're going to go tell someone about flat Earth, really know your stuff, because you could be detrimental to the truth in that sense. But again, this isn't a cult. I'm not your dad. I don't get paid to supervise you. The world is the world, man. Some people, they want to learn more. Some people don't. Some people are intelligent enough to know how to deliver things and to be tactical with it and not to speak about things trying to convince someone of something prior to them fully understanding it. Some people don't. Some people will come tell you to believe in the Bible but don't know anything about it. So that's just life. So anyway, some of us want to understand the world, bro. Okay? And there seems to be only one logically viable framework, and it's very open-ended. It's just a word. Ether is just a word. You can call it gobbledygook. It doesn't matter what you call it. Call it a background. Call it a medium. Call it whatever you want to call it. Whatever you want to call it. But everyone knows what you're talking about. There's something that exists outside the material world that interacts. There's a realm, a metaphysical realm. It interacts with the physical world. And it appears that a lot of the energy that manifests in our realm comes from that metaphysical realm. Because there's no other explanation. We haven't been able to come up with any other viable explanation. Now we can put our hands up and say, who cares? I don't care. Can't explain it. Oh, well. Well, okay, that's not very satisfactory for those of us that are intellectuals. We want to figure it out. Even for just the fact that knowledge is power alone, a lot of us literally want to figure out what's up with energy, and maybe we can actually make the world a better place. And people will try to do that, and then they've got taken out. Virtual photons are nothing more than a construct. So that's the stupidity that atomism has devolved into. Quantum mechanics is built upon atomism. Again, now quantum mechanics is very precise with their measurements, and their calculations more so. But they define everything as a quanta and a wave particle duality and wave probability functions. So there's like, oh, well, it acts like a wave, but it's a particle. At the same time, it's a particle and it's a wave, even though dualities don't exist. But sometimes it acts like a particle, sometimes it acts like a wave. And we're going to come up with mathematical constructs to try to narrow down the probability of finding this interaction or this phenomena in a certain area so that we can try to count it, so that we can try to make, let's say computers, whatever it is. It's so that we can quantify it to use it and replicate with it. Now, in the pursuit to understand the world within quantum, they have devolved into absolute absurdity. Okay. So it's like we have to acknowledge it's not viable. It's simply not. Now you can pick what a lot of people want to do is they want to pick and choose. And a lot of it's pride and ego, bro. Blatantly. People have claimed quantum mechanics for a long time. People have claimed atomism for a long time. People have claimed electrons for a long time. And they don't want to go back on it. And you can pick and choose what you want out of quantum mechanics, and you can just act like you're blinded to the implications of the claim or some of the problems. But it's like, oh, well, I just agree with this part of quantum. I think that part's stupid. Virtual particles are stupid. But then you can't answer what is magnetism within quantum mechanics. You don't just get to pick and choose. The philosophy comes with it's a framework. It comes with implications, right? And so what is electricity? Where does it come from? What is electrostatics and what is magnetism? So this is what, so they're asking me, what does it matter? Well, there's the biggest reason. I don't see how someone could understand that. We can't understand energy. We've been lied to, and clearly it was done on purpose. If you ask someone what energy is, if you Google what energy is, you can go to any school, whatever it is. If you ask them what energy is, they will tell you the ability or capacity to do work. That's stupid. That's not an answer. That's not an explanation or a definition of energy at all whatsoever. If I ask you, what is a human? And you tell me humans breathe oxygen, I'd be like, I asked you what a human is, not what it does. They're just telling you what energy does. It has the ability to do work. It doesn't define what it is. Truth is that it's pressure mediation. Everything is pressure mediation. That should be the first natural law. Everything seeks equilibrium via pressure mediation. Everything. Because everything's intrinsically comprised of electrostatics and there's oscillation within everything. So the very composition of matter itself is derived of pressure mediation. Everything. Okay, now when you have a field of force, then you have it. So then we have to define field. And again, force is not a thing in and of itself. It's what something does. So it's like, well, what force? What's the force acting on? Like by what? You know what I'm saying? It's not something in and of itself. It's what something does. And then, well, what is a field? Again, quantum mechanics doesn't define a field as anything but math. Bro, if your answer for everything is math, you're wrong. Math is not reality. Right? And us at Flat Earthers, we figured this out. Math is not reality, bro. Right? And the globe Earth paradigm wants to conflate math to reality. But it is not. The fact that you've come up with a construct that the Earth is a spherical Earth with a radius of 3,959 miles, spinning 1,037 miles per hour east of the equator, with a 66.6 degree tilt, going 66,600 miles per hour around the sun, and blah, 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 blah. That's not reality. That's just your mathematical construct. If I give you an equation that Superman flies, Superman doesn't exist just because I came up with math to describe him. And so we have a magnetic field. We can see it. We can see the magnetic field under a ferrocell. You can see it using contrast. Oh, you're using contrast. Oh. You have no problem using contrast with a photographic plate and the double slit. You should do a string theory hypothesis. I'd be down. Thank you for the super chat. So when you really start to put this all together, you find out that these people don't even have answers for anything. When I say these people, I mean quantum proponents. This is the cutting edge of the world we live in, right? Quantum mechanics is the cutting edge of everything. And that's what everyone thinks, what everyone says. Because there's some truth to it. It's because that's when we really get into the weeds and try to figure out what's going on a very precise level. That part's true. The interpretation is trash, bro. And it's confined to materialism. It's confined to the need to quantify. That means if there's anything immaterial going on, if there's any type of immaterial interaction with the material world that we're looking at or isolating, we automatically cannot define it properly if we're assuming that we can quantify it, because you cannot quantify the immaterial intrinsically. Very basic logic. Right. Now, I know that some people are like, well, I'm a materialist, but not by the strict definition. And it's not a dichotomy of materialist versus an immaterialist. Of course not. There's a material world and there's an interaction with it. Right? So what does it matter? Well, it gives us a framework to start to understand a lot of phenomena. And even within the realm of flat Earth, it gives us a framework to start to understand things that previously can't be explained. Now, falsification is independent of replacement. They told us the Earth is something. We can test it. We debunked it. We actually don't have to go beyond that from an intellectual perspective. Now, this is where it comes to, well, what is your, I don't want to get vulgar, but like, what is your actual motive here? Like to whip around like your FE anatomy, or is it to wake people up? See, I've for years, I've tried to figure out the most efficient way to wake people up and read the signs on what's going to wake them up differently. Each person's different. Right? Like, well, I break down long distance observations to someone with the math, and they're like, whoa, they can't unsee it. Some people can be told about 15 of them and not wake them up, but then I tell them that, well, look, you say you believe in the Bible. Well, the rainbow means it's not going to flood because it's actually a physical lifetime demonstration of the fact that something's holding back the water above. And text that were removed says there's 7 layers, and that maybe is why there is 7 colors. And so it's literally showing you what's holding back the water above us, and that's why it can't flood again, because the Bible says that it flooded that way, right? And they're like, oh, wow, it changes their life. Everyone wakes up differently. And the point is that although from an intellectual perspective, like a real rigid debate perspective, falsification is independent of replacement. So whenever I can point out that you're conflating correlation and causation, whenever you don't even have like any type of actual scientific evidence, but you're making claims as if it is science, which is the definition of pseudoscience, that which falsely masquerades as science, I can critique it, I can falsify it, I can show something that falsifies your claim, and I don't have to replace it. And if you tell me that Santa Claus is real, but then I go see my mom and dad bring presents, or I see that no one came down the chimney, I don't have to create a new fictitious character from the North Pole, or your claim of Santa Claus is still real, even though I falsified it. All right, that's logically bankrupt. That makes no sense. Falsification is independent of replacement. But that doesn't mean that we shouldn't try to understand what's going on. And whenever you're like, oh, well, look how much more atomism has tried to explain. It's this construct that has all this use case. So like, what do you got with the ether? What is the ether? It's just like when globe earthers say, why don't you have a map of the entire Earth? Where's your, we claim that Polaris is 323 million light years away, even though it changed by 30%. We were completely wrong, but we have an answer for everything. We've come up with all kinds of stuff and tidal locking, and that's what causes the tides, even though on the opposite side of the Earth, there's the same magnitude of waves simultaneously away from the moon, but apparently the Earth or the moon actually pulls the water to it and pulls the Earth to it, just not as much as the water. So the moon pulls the Earth and creates like this, so like a symmetrical distribution of tides. But so they've come up with stories for everything, and they've come and it's a very dishonest tactic to do that, because it's like, oh wow, that's so impressive. A lot of us have woken up to a deception about the Earth. We're trying to piece it together. We're not allowed to privately explore past the 60th south latitude or within 500 miles of each direction of the center. We are just trying to figure it out. We can't even shoot rockets all the way up without a certain type of fuel that has to be approved from the government. We are super confined to our knowledge, and we're just trying to piece it together. That doesn't mean your story's true, though, right? Because you've had billions and billions of dollars and hundreds of years, allegedly hundreds of years, with the world's governments all working together to map out these things and then tell you what they're going to let you know. And then all these different schools raising all these different children with all these different degrees, all these different fields, all trying to explain things within the presupposed model that you're claiming is real. And now that you've made up all kinds of answers that keep getting falsified and changed and clearly aren't reality, the fact that you've come up with all kinds of nonsense because you have like all those resources and all that power and control doesn't make it any more valid. And so we're trying to explain things and figure it out, but we have this little group of people that are super censored, that are waking up to the deceptions, and we're trying to figure out what's going on with the ether. It is not in any way logically viable as a critique to try to say, oh, well, you don't have all the answers, so atomism seems more viable. No, it's not. It's not more viable. Now, a lot of people want to detach themselves from it and say, oh, well, I'm not claiming either one's real. And if I did, then they'd both be reification fallacies. Well, if you say, look, the proof of the ether is that the ether exists like this, that's a reification fallacy. Like, look, the ether has to exist because what I say the ether is would do this like this. And since we see this happening, therefore the ether is real. It's a begging the question fallacy, reification fallacy, claiming that your concept is real, misplaced concreteness to a concept. But the point is that actually the ether is not scientifically provable. We can gather all kinds of different pieces of science in the natural world, and we can try to figure out what's the best framework, the overarching framework of interpretation to explain it. Okay. And you can't, if you're honest and you look at both of them, you can choose to not look at them. That's what people are doing now, which, by the way, man, that's not what everyone was doing. All right. And if you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. Everyone was going around talking about photons and electrons. They knew it was real. Now, all of a sudden, they've never said that. They don't know anything about it. No, they're detaching from it. No, I don't believe in atomism. No, I never said it was real. I know it's just a model. That's convenient when you've been talking about photons and electrons this entire time. But the point is that you can ignore it and say, well, I'm not gonna side with either one of them. I'm not gonna even address the idea that we need a framework of interpretation. I'm just gonna sit over here and say, no, you're stupid, but never grow, never know anything, never address any phenomena, and just literally be useless and invaluable to the conversation or growth about what's going on in the natural world. That's a personal prerogative, right? But we don't want to do that. So we're going to look at them and see which one's more logically viable. And is there a more logically viable third option? I've yet to hear one. If you guys have a more logically viable third option to atomism or to ether, let me know. I personally am to the point where I think just about anything is more viable than quantum mechanics within the confinement of materialism and atomism. And we have to quantify everything. And even if it's immaterial, we're going to quantify it and make up virtual particles. I think that, anything's more viable than that. I would say rope theory, even though the rope hypothesis is more viable. So anyway, we're just trying to figure it out. And so this has been a really long way of me trying to get to the primary points I'm explaining. We're about an hour in, but like, why does it matter? Like if you can listen to the stream and not to start to see why it matters, I'm not sure that I can help you. Right. But there are many things. There's a lot of phenomena, even within the realm of flat Earth, that it starts to add context to, where we can maybe understand what's going on. Now, can we prove that it's the ether? No, I would say you cannot. You cannot prove it. But there's a lot of things that you can't prove. Technically speaking, you could say that you can't prove the creator. Now, I would disagree. I would say that the necessary antecedent to creation is a creator, and a logical axiom says such. That's why I would say, in a way, you can provide like logical evidence for the ether, that it seems like until you can give me some other like specific rebuttal as to the logical coherence of it, I don't really see another way. We're using the same thing. We're using logic, necessary antecedent, logical axioms to propose something as a truth, right? That's what we're trying to figure out. What is the truth? Now, I cannot manipulate the creator and prove that he created the world with a scientific experiment. But logic dictates that something designed this world because it has way too much order. Right? The necessary antecedent of order, the prerequisite requirement, if you will, is something, some agent, some sentient, intelligent being or agent or designer placed that in order. Right? Let me get a drink. Look, we have technology that works based on the existence of the ether. But that sounds very similar to when people tell me, oh, you don't believe in gravity? Well, you can't use your phone because your phone has an accelerometer in it. You don't believe in the photon? Well, you can't use a semiconductor because it uses the photoelectric effect. Just because frameworks are used to come up with technology, it doesn't prove it. The question consistently comes down to, what's the most logically viable explanation every time? And I will always push back against someone claiming that they can scientifically prove the ether, just like I would push back against someone saying they can scientifically prove the atomic model or theory, or the electron or something like that. It's about which one's more logically viable. Now, we have something called the analemma. We have the Tropic of Cancer, the Tropic of Capricorn, right? See if I can get you a picture here. And so it's like the path of the sun, and we've like, you can take time lapse of it. I've heard someone say something about it just like a human construct or whatever. You can take pictures of it. Okay, now it is just an observation of the sun, and it's like the sun seems to have this path in the sky over the course of the year. Now we know that in the north on the earth, we have summertime during July, and then in the south, it's like in December, right? Their winter is our summer and vice versa. So the question is, sorry. The question is, what's going on there? Now, we cannot prove this scientifically because we can't go up to the sun and physically manipulate it, but we can narrow it down to like logically viable explanations. And if really there's no other logically viable ones, it doesn't prove it, but it's like the best we got right now, and it's logically substantiated at that point until specific, concise, coherent, logical alternative can be postulated. Okay, so with the analemma, for example, I can't even remember how to spell. Someone spell that for me. Yikes. Oh, you can't even smell. Is it Anamaeela? That's what I was thinking for some reason, but obviously not. All right, so. Okay, I got it. All right, so. You look at this. What could be over a flat stationary Earth? What could be causing the sun to do this? Well, we have. Let me share this. Like, what could be causing this path of the sun where you see it's smaller? It's smaller up at the top, right? And so it's like the path is smaller and then it gets wider. On a flat Earth, as you go out from the center, it gets wider, right? So the question is, what's going on here? This just goes to show my point here, which is we're trying to understand things further. Okay. So if you adopt an ether, this begins to make a lot more sense. Okay, because the ether is postulated to have a vortex, like a whirlpool or a tornado. Okay, I mean, I guess I'll just show visualizations for everyone. I guess what can we do here? So typos left and right. Or so you got a vortex here. Everyone chill out with the whole copyrights. There you go. You got a vortex. I mean, everyone knows this, right? But I want you to visualize it. Okay. So if you have a vortex within this background, right, on the Earth, okay? You see this? It's going to be moving faster at the bottom, right? You see it's really, they're typically much wider at the top, but you see it's wider and it's getting thinner and it's faster at the bottom and it's slower at the top. Okay. Now, if you have a vortex in the ether, which is where you have the Sadnik effect, which he who discovered it said that it was based on a vortex within the ether, which doesn't prove it, of course. But the analemma would logically be higher up within that vortex over top of the north, and so it moves slower. So it has less place to move. Now, I'm not even claiming it's a physical object that travels like that. I think it's magnetic holography, but we still perceive this. Well, who knows? I'm not making claims either way. I'm not making claims about what the sun is because I can't prove it. We're just trying to figure it out. We do see the sun move in a certain way, and we experience seasons. I wonder how much the audio drops off when I drop back. All right. So when it goes to the south, it would be, if it got lower, and this like lower, right? It would be in the faster part of the tornado. So it would be able to go around a greater distance faster. Now this is just something that logically makes sense. It offers some logical viability. It doesn't prove anything. Falsification is independent of replacement. We don't have to claim this. Some of us just want to figure out what's going on. Okay? There are many things like this, and magnetism is a big one, and electricity is a big one. There's a whole bunch of stuff that all of a sudden with the ether, it starts to make sense. We have a drift in the sky. Now, can we really figure it out? No. Like, do we need to know exactly what the drift in the sky is? What's causing it, to know the Earth's flat, to wake people up? No. Could it be detrimental to overly speculate when trying to initially wake someone up? Sure. But we cannot capitulate to future prospects of people. And I find it to be completely disingenuous and hold no weight if someone that's trying to dictate it and I pretend that it's like, for the goods, like the sake of flat Earth, that you don't speculate because of that. But then you're constantly capitulating to anti-flat Earth. There's people that know all the information and stalk you for years and just want to bring toxicity and low vibration and name calling and berate you and stalk you with all kinds of crazy emails, like anti-flat Earthers, not Globers, anti-flat Earthers. If you're going to constantly interact with them and capitulate to their arguments and just wait for them to come up with a new one to argue and argue and argue and argue, then you really don't have much to say about newcomers and what they're going to think. See, for me, hearing a lot of the open-minded information about magnetism and the dielectric plane, the inertial plane on the Earth, that's what helped wake me up, right? That was some of the first stuff I came across where I saw pictures of the magnetic field. I'm like, whoa. And I kind of went through, kind of breezed past it. So I became really infatuated with it. And then I started talking on Facebook, and then Bob asked me to jump on the internet. So my whole point is it gives us a framework to interpret things, right? And we can ignore the observation of ᴄᴏ and desperately find a way with bias to try to dismiss it. Or we can just be open-minded intellectuals that are not scared of any information, because truth does not fear investigation, right? Truth doesn't fear investigation. So we don't have to fear any information. If it's true information and it happens every time, we can look at it. We don't have anything to be afraid of. ᴄᴏ happens every time. Every single time, there's a little bit of a shift, but it's not what would be claimed in the Earth's orbit. When we use interferometry to try to measure the sidereal rotation of the sky relative to the Earth, it matches within 98% accuracy every single time of the sidereal rotation. So we have information here to go off of, like, why do these lasers look like they do different things relative to the Earth moving, or the Earth being stationary with the sky moving, and then whenever we're trying to detect the orbital motion. Now, obviously, that doesn't give us tons of value because we know the Earth's not moving, but it's interesting, right? And so if you had a system moving around the Earth, it would basically press down on the Earth. There would be a translation of motion. That would make sense. That would make sense. That's translation of motion. So we would have some effects on the Earth. These are the types of conversations that are not needed in this like rigid dogmatic way to debate people, but it is oftentimes needed to actually wake people up. So what is your true motivation? To wake people up, to learn more, to gain knowledge, to try to make the world a better place, or to wear your badge of honor that you're 200-0 against anti-flat earthers that come on the internet? What's your true motivation, bro? So that's the true question. Later, Mr. Anderson, my boy's a legend. Thanks for kicking it when you could. And so when people start to hear some of this stuff, it becomes very intriguing, becomes very interesting. So now I'm going to kind of get into some light discussion here. Now, if you guys saw this, you can look real close. You'll see the this little, like, looks like a wave of light, right? Now, if you look real close, I want you to look at it while we talk about it, okay? Now, waves are not things. Waves are not things. I can wave my hand. I can't hand you a wave. I need my hand to wave. It's a type of movement. You have a wave of water. A wave's not a thing. It's just the water. You need the medium. You need something moving. My hand's a medium. You need something. Now, the rebuttal has been, well, what's the definition of medium? Substance or material. Okay, well then what's the substance or material that you're claiming this ether medium is? Well, it's immaterial. Oh, well, that's a law of contradiction fallacy. And you're claiming that there's an immaterial medium, a non-manifest medium is contradictory. Only within the definition of it as material only. Okay, so it's just a word that intellectuals use for intents and purposes. We aren't trying to wear our medal to say, look, I got him with the definition game. The definition, and definitions are important. It's called a Socratic method. So I'm not disputing that it's important to define terms. It is. But it's important in the sense that it progresses the conversation. It doesn't win the conversation. So if you can't fully represent or like attack the other person's accurate representation of his argument, you're not winning anything, right? You're like, you can't use the word medium because it's material or whatever. You understand what I'm saying, though. In my presentation, by the way, which I have the link, I think I dropped it, and it's under the other description. I'll drop it in this description too. It says acts as a medium. Very specifically worded. That whole presentation, I'm sure I had some mistakes. There's no doubt, like typing wise, and it could have been better written, but I typed that up, and it acts as a medium. Now, this is to help us understand it, because this is a philosophy, and that requires understanding, and it requires us to convey it logically, right, in an attempt to attain understanding. Okay? So it acts as a medium, and which is something that sustains or carries, waves or propagation. So anyway, when we get into light, I want you to, I said all that, kind of got distracted, but it's important to understand. Waves are not things. They're types of movement. Something has to be there to move, to wave, right? Very simple stuff. Very simple stuff. All right. Now, if you look at this right here, I want you to think about the double slit. If you don't know what the double slit is, they claim that they, let's just say, shoot a laser, so it's easy for you. It's not really a laser, but they shoot light. It comes over here. There's a film with 2 slits in it, okay? Or it can be 1 slit. And then the light goes through there, and it's read on a photographic plate, and they read that it's a discrete chunk. Now, if you have 2, you get an interference pattern on the plate, and it's like, wow, that's weird. That's what a wave would do. But they're like, no, it's not a wave. It's a photon. It's a particle. So this is weird. So when there's 2, it's what a wave would do. So it's like, that's weird. Wave-particle duality. It's both of them. But they claim that there's a wave function collapse where the interference pattern goes away, and that the photographic plate gets hit by the light and gives you these little discrete dots. And this is one of the most famous experiments ever, right? It's obviously not actually a scientific experiment, but it's still valuable. It gives us information. You know what I'm saying? Observations and tests and demonstrations are still valuable, although not scientifically verifiable, right? Even though it's not scientific validation, experimentation, or validation, it can still actually be beneficial. So anyway, now they say light, if light's a wave, how do you get the discrete impact? When it passes through the slit and then it hits the plate. We'll use the word impact, hit, and passes through the slate. Now, I'm not a man of semantics, but that is your actual argument. That's your actual implications of your argument. So you're claiming that the light is traveling from point A to point B from the rip. It goes through the slit. That's claiming travel from point A to point B. It goes through the slit. And then it hits and it impacts. And the truth is, it's not like you take a picture of the photon hitting it and it turns around and smiles for you right before it hits the plate and you see it hit it like a BB gun's getting shot at it. No, the plate has, they claim that a photon and electron hit and they give you this energy reaction and then they give you an image. It's all electric. Everything's electric, right? Now, I want you to look at this picture and think about that. I hope that made sense. I don't have time to go all the way into the double slit. Maybe in the future, I'll really try and break it down and just do a show on it. But I don't want to beat a dead horse and just ether. I'm not going to capitulate to people trying to get clicks off my channel or anything like that. So if you look at this right here, now think about the double slit. You have on the left here, we'll say the left. Hopefully you can see my mouse. The left is where the light manifests from, what they would call a light source that shoots the light, right? And then you have over here down the screen, you have where the plate would be, okay? Now, that's already there. The light does not travel. It's just, that's what's already there, and it's being disturbed, reverberating, vibrating, okay? Oscillating. It's a disturbance. It doesn't travel down that beach right there. It's already there. So that means if the plate at the end, once you quote unquote shoot this light, it is immediately down there by the plate. And that's where there is a material that has an energy reaction, right? It's actually just electrostatics, dielectric, and they call it electrons. Even though they claim that photons and electrons could be the same thing, different versions of. Quantum field theory claims they are the same thing, just different versions of the same thing, which is funny. That's what ether claims. But anyway, the point is, it doesn't travel, doesn't hit the plate. It's just already there. So they think that People, stupid humans think it can't be a wave because the wave travels from point A to point B. Okay, it travels, and that means it's going to keep on hitting the plate over and over because it's just a wave traveling over there. So it's going to keep hitting the plate over and over, but it's not doing that. It's not what happens. It's already there. So there's just one area, wherever that actual material plate is, within that disturbance of light, that is light, that's the only place you're going to get an interaction. Now, if you allow the light to continue to go, right, then you're going to pick up, it depends on with your little slits, and you're going to pick all kinds of things up that give you impression that it acts like a wave. Now, anyway, the point is that light is really just already there. Turn on screen share. Not screen share. Oh, did you not see? I was just trying to show you the picture of the thumbnail. No video, was it? Okay. I guess you guys want to see a video. I'll show you a video. I was just trying to show you like the wave on the thumbnail. But I'll try to show you something. And this is another thing, like this doesn't prove anything just because like when someone the mainstream says one thing, that doesn't prove it. Okay. But it doesn't prove it's not true just because the mainstream says it, but it's a good start. It's definitely, they got Professor Dave popping up, who I'm supposed to be debating Professor Dave, by the way. Thanks, Austin. I appreciate your patience in all of this. You did a fine job not taking the bait this morning to become just as toxic as the group you were addressing. Yeah, thank you. Yeah. FED, if you don't know, and it was just, I guess. I won't be on there again, obviously, but yeah, it's all good. I'm trying to like bridge gaps, and I don't want to anymore. I mean, I don't, that's whatever. It's whatever, bro. It's just a joke. Instantaneous action at a distance proves ether, and it matters. Well, they'll claim that instantaneous action at a distance is just math, I would assume. But then the flat earthers that claim that light is a discrete chunk of information in a particle, they claim that it could be instant. So can light be a physical photon that's instant? Good luck with that one. Can something travel from point A to B instantly? Those are two different questions. Okay. You did really good on this point. I don't know how you would know, man, because I was not heard for 70% of what I was saying. But anyway, yeah, I think Professor Dave's supposed to happen. When are you debating him? I don't know. We have to agree on a platform. He wanted me to debate him on Fight the Flat Earth channel with Mattoon as the moderator. Because FTFE reached out to him and he agreed. I'm like, I'm not debating on the most biased, unfair situation I can imagine, where it'll be 3v1, I'll be interrupted and muted and just attacked and strawmanned and not allowed to speak and just treated super disrespectfully, and it won't be a fair debate at all. That's ridiculous. A channel that's designed and its main purpose is just to attack flat earthers with strawman and dishonesty, I refuse. I told him I'll never be on a show. So anyway, I reached out to him myself, and I'm like, look, you're only going to debate me on a show like that, bro? Like, what a joke. You're scared to actually debate me fairly? He said, I didn't say that, but Fight the Tight Shirt said that he would only debate me on that channel, and that's the only way that it would happen. So he lied, but of course, like, what's new? He just wants clout. So long story short, he doesn't want to do a certain platform, which is the platform I want to do it on, which is a fair platform, modern day debate. And yeah, that's pretty much where we are. We're just gonna sit it out. He's gonna have to debate me on a fair platform, but he's already said that he would, but only on an unfair platform. So it sounds like he's scared. So anyway, we got stuff planned to make that happen. It will happen. It will be on a fair platform, and he's gonna get destroyed. Okay. Anyway, I can't watch him though. Like, I'd rather jump off the roof or something. Maybe maybe we should watch it so we can see, like, wow, you guys are on Professor Clown Show's side with this one. I honestly just don't even care. What's it gonna do if I do this? Hey, Professor quote unquote Dave, man, can you not strike my channel for this, dude? That would be super lame. I'm going to jump in. I really just needed something with visualizations. I would think, surely this guy won't strike me, right? All right, so we'll play with a little bit of, actually don't know how to make it play with sound anyway. So there'll be no sound. We're just going to use the visualization. Okay, so we say that the light goes through these two slits and it breaks up into an interference pattern. It doesn't matter. I think most people should know this. This is the funny part right here. So people are saying that light's neither electric nor magnetic, but that it is an oscillating electric field and an oscillating magnetic field, electromagnetic radiation, and there's a particle within it, but that it's neither electric nor magnetic. Oh my goodness. I don't even know. I don't even understand the point. I want to make sure. Look, I don't want to strawman people. I understand what you're saying when you say it's not electric nor magnetic, because you say that it doesn't respond to charge or have a charge, doesn't respond to electricity or magnetism. That's interesting. Like, what's a ferrous cell showing us? To say there's no relationship between electricity and light makes no sense, because you can't even have electricity without electrics. My goodness. So anyway, this guy right here is going to have the scope put on him. All right, your time has come, my guy. Long overdue. Long overdue. Better without sound? Yeah, I agree. What a bundle of sticks. That's funny. So Einstein solved the problem of the photoelectric effect. This is called pseudoscience because relativity had to save the globe. What an awesome studio. Thank you. We're going to really try to set the stream up to be dope. So anyway, you see what they're saying. They say it happens with electrons too. Like I said, quantum field theory says that electrons and photons are the same thing. Hey, by the way, the ether says that electrons and photons are the same thing, just different versions of the same thing. I'm getting to where it's been so long in the stream, I'm going to start talking fast. I can feel it. But, you've reached the Witsit speed is about to happen. I can feel it. Okay. So electrons and photons are nothing more than modalities of the same thing. Third option, wave particle cooperation. What? That doesn't make sense, bro. But thank you for the super chat. And I never got any rebuttals to my okay, if light's a particle, if it's a physical particle traveling from point A to point B, then when you shoot it at glass and it slows down by 30% and then speeds back up when it leaves, how does that not breach the conservation of energy and momentum? Dun, 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 dun. Anyway, oh, but I will say I agree that it's a false dichotomy, that it's either a wave or a particle. Light is neither a wave nor a particle. It's nothing more than the excitation of the. All right, here we go. This is now where, if you aren't really wanting to have this intellectual exchange and try and sharpen off one another and figure something out, you should just leave now. Just go ahead and leave now, because you're going to try to call everything I say word salad. Just because you don't understand something or haven't researched something enough to understand it or have poor vocabulary, it doesn't mean that what I'm saying is word salad. Okay? Because that's just ridiculous. For the Globers and some dishonest flat earthers alike, I hate even addressing people in these two categories. Like, I'd rather hang out with a bunch of different Globers than certain flat earthers. All right. Word salad is defined as a jumble of extremely incoherent speech, as sometimes observed in schizophrenia. Extremely incoherent speech. The sheep languish, blue trains suffer. That's what word salad is. It means it makes literally no sense, okay? That's what word salad means. What I'm saying is very coherent and it makes sense. So word salad is not synonymous with inept vocabulary skills. Easy multi-path differential, same speed. How's that easy? Can you verify the speed? The same speed? How can you verify it has a speed? What's the speed? Can you verify it has a speed? Do you have a one-way speed? But thanks for the super chat. So you can pay $2 for each of your questions. It's whatever. I mean, I think it's kind of cool to have the other side. All right. So anyway, let's just talk about it. So quantum field theory will talk about how the photon and electron are basically different versions of the same thing. If you don't know, quantum field theory is basically one of the more popular quantum mechanic fields nowadays. That's trying to kind of save the day because the previous archaic quantum mechanics couldn't explain a lot of phenomena. So trying to say that everything is comprised of fields. But what is a field? Ask them to define it. They'll define it as math. Math is not reality, so you're not actually even proposing anything. What is it? It's not wave probability distribution. That's just stupid. That doesn't have anything to do with reality. Oh, what's a field? Oh, it's just us quantifying the properties of different things like man. Yeah. But what is it? Anyway. And they claim so everything's comprised of fields that are comprised of little bitty particles, even virtual particles and photons. But the point is, it's proposed because it's trying to explain things that the archaic quantum mechanics cannot. And guess what? They say the photon and the electron are effectively the same thing, different versions of. Isn't that funny? Because that's what ＩTHER says. And they're just crawling their way back to the ＩTHER reluctantly. And I talked to quantum physicists that told me this. They told me this. Let me guess, they're just clown show pretender clowns or whatever. Like, they told me, bro, more than one, and I'm not appealing to their authority. It's just objective. If you look into the information yourself, they're just slowly, reluctantly being dragged over, crawling over to an ＩTHER postulation, but they cannot blatantly say that because it means the Earth's not moving. Now, of course, quantum mechanics is already is incompatible with relativity, but they still want to try to make it compatible with relativity. So that's what quantum field theory is trying to do. And anyway, so the photon and the electron are different modalities of the same thing, just like water is the same thing. Like liquid water is the same thing as steam and ice, but they're different modalities of, versions of, states of, right? So that's all that the photon and the electron is. They have varying energy levels, right? But they're just the same thing because what is energy? Pure potential comes from where? Where does energy come from? The ＩTHER is postulated to be pure potential, unmanifest, and then energy manifests materially from that. And we have different modalities of that manifestation. And the photon and the electron will give you that. Light's nothing more than a disturbance within the ＩTHER, right? A perturbation, a disturbance. It's just a disturbance. The motion itself doesn't mean it's traveling from point A to point B. It's to actually convey the type of motion, like transverse type motion, even though sometimes it gives you properties that look like it's longitudinal, which Tesla yourself would explain. It's based on coherency and then the relative medium it's perceived through. Right? But it never does it travel from point A to point B, and there's no evidence of it. So if you claim that it's traveling, going through a slit and then hitting, you have to claim it's traveling and then hitting the plate to claim that it's a discrete chunk that hits the plate. Well, it's just instantly there and there's just one chunk. Oh, sounds like you're talking about the fact that it's actually just a background medium and you don't want to say it. They won't say that. The truth is you're just trying to detach yourself from all the implications of the claim. If you say that, I don't really care. The point is that if you claim it travels, you got a problem. We have observations that show that the speed of light is drastically debunked. And if light is instant, it can't be a physical particle traveling from point A to point B. The main point here, because it's going to kind of get technical, I guess, the main point here is that people are conflating the perception of light with what light actually is. See, light illuminates. We see it illuminate. And they try to quantify the quote-unquote speed of light. We just see it. It becomes manifest. It becomes perceivable. Illumination is typically how people understand it, although there is a non-visible spectrum of light. Dun, dun, dun. You won't ever get a rebuttal about how that just destroys the whole idea. But anyway, people quantify the perception. Now, it's actually a rate of induction, or you could try to say in layman terms, absorption into the ＩTHER. Back into the ＩTHER. When I say back into the ＩTHER, it is the ＩTHER. You're like, oh man, no, it's like ice melting into water. They're still the same thing. They're different versions of it. It's going back to its original state, to its original version. So it's like the ice melting into water. For you to pretend, if I say that it's just being absorbed into the ＩTHER, I thought you said it was the ＩTHER. Yeah, but it's a different version of. And if you think that makes me stupid, you're not understanding what's going on. It's just like ice melting into water. They're still the same thing. They were different versions of. That we as humans quantify the perception. There's a rate of induction. It doesn't travel from point A to point B, which is why I was showing you guys the thumbnail. This whole thing is already there, right? If we just see that light right there with that thumbnail, all we're seeing is the background that's already there, becoming excited, illuminating. A disturbance, a perturbation, a disturbance, oscillation, vibration, excitation of the medium results in illumination. We quantify the perception. when I say a whole bunch of different descriptors, it's not me using word salad. It's not me trying to pretend like I'm smart. It is me trying to narrow down the possibility that you don't understand what I'm saying. I'm giving you as many different ways to describe it as possible, right? And it's hard because a lot of this requires the redefining of terms because we've been lied to about what these words mean or what they're limited to or what their application is confined to. That doesn't mean anything, though. That doesn't mean anything. Intelligent people don't do that. They don't cop out like that. They're like, oh, I was told a model that I don't believe him, but this is how the model defines it. And materialism defines it like this. So we can't think outside of that. That's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. So you can call it whatever you want to. Now, if I say substrate, you'll look it up and say, oh, it says substance in it. Ha, ha, ha. Now, it acts as a substrate, an underlying layer. It's a background to the material world, right? It acts as a medium for sustaining of energy. What is energy sustained within? It can't be sustained within nothingness, so there has to be something there. What's outside of the material world? Something. Okay, that's what we're saying. There's a metaphysical realm, and it interacts with the physical material world. We know this by way of logic a million different ways. So if you guys really take this in, it's important because, dude, this is all around you. And if anything, this should make you really be in awe of creation and more so the creator. Do not ever worship the creation. And the ether is not the creator. And to think, oh, well, it had to be here for the creator to be able to make the material world is logically bankrupt as well, because that would mean that the ether is God. Or you have a vicious circular logic that will never end. Do not deify this. Do not claim the ether is divine. And I understand why people get frustrated where people are just like, deify the ether. No, it seemingly could be a characteristic of the creator. The creator is obviously much bigger than even what the material world is within, because that whole construct had to be created. So that's my opinion on that. But the point is, the immaterial world does interact with the material world. It's just objective. We have consciousness. Is consciousness material or physical? No. Do we experience consciousness in the physical world? Yes. Is magnetism comprised of material? No. Do we experience in the material world? Yes. Where does it come from? Where does light come from before it's perceivable? Does it just come there? Does it appear out of nowhere? Now people are saying it just appears on the plate. Things don't just appear. That's not how it works. So where does it come from? If you're within the quantum mechanics of the mainstream, we know, where do virtual particles come from when they pop into existence? Whenever you look at a vacuum chamber, which we know aren't in nature, but why do we have electromagnetic fluctuations, and where does that come from? How do you have virtual particles and photons and electromagnetic fluctuations in a vacuum? Where does it come from? 0-point energy, vacuum energy, whatever you can say to not acknowledge the material realm interacts with the material realm. The immaterial realm interacts with the material realm. Okay, and that's the only way that the earth could ever exist, by the way. That's the only way the material world could exist. So the point is, there's a shifting that happens. It can go back and forth. There's like a bridge there. There's an intermediary. There's an interaction between the material and the immaterial. Accept this. Not accepting this is going to leave you intellectually confined and limited and effectively, frankly, stupid. Okay, you have to acknowledge it. There's no other viable way to explain the world. So when we acknowledge this and we accept it for what it is, which is just logically inevitable that the material world can interact with the immaterial and that the metaphysical realm exists. And although that since it's immaterial, it cannot be science, it's outside of any type of like futile pursuit of the carnal mind of humans with matter trying to science it and pull their clipboard out and count it. It doesn't mean it doesn't exist. It doesn't mean that you can't talk about it. It doesn't mean that you can't have logical evidence or logical axioms that support it just because you can't pull your clipboard out and count it. And if you pull your clipboard out and try to count it and it can't be counted, then you show me your clipboard and tell me how you're right. That's ridiculous. You cannot quantify the immaterial. Right? And so I'm really trying to drive this all in because it's becoming reiterative at this point. And I really hope you guys understand what I'm trying to say. Brother setup is fire. Thank you, man. Good night, my bro. All right. So the point is that light is already there. So you need to understand the way that you're looking at the world has been misguided, bro. It's like light's instant. It's already there. So they're like, oh, it's a physical particle that travels from point A to point B, but it could be instant. What? Can it travel from point A to point B and be instant? Oh, well, we're going to walk that back and we're not going to say travel. We're just going to say, I don't know if it travels or not, but it's a discrete little chunk. Okay, so how does it go over there? Are you claiming it goes over there? Because that's what you're claiming. If it's a discrete chunk that's just everywhere, that makes no sense. So what does that mean? How is it instant? It's logically bankrupt at every corner. This is why we talk about the ether, and this is why I would say it's the only logically viable explanation, because it is. It is because there is not another logically viable explanation, bro. It should be understood, bro. You need to understand this, okay? Hand wave dismissal and turning your head to the inevitability of the logic viability or the lack thereof doesn't somehow equate to victory or any type of benefit or value in the real world. Light's already there, bro. It's already there. So you're trying to quantify something. So what are we going to quantify? We're going to quantify when we see the light, how fast we see the light, right? Just because we quantify how fast we see the light, it doesn't mean that the light's physically traveling at any type of speed. One of the primary critiques of me saying that light does not have a speed, it does not travel from point A to point B, it's nothing more than a rate of induction. And they're like, ha, 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 that's a speed. And I'm like, okay, I specified very clearly that it isn't traveling from point A to point B. It has a rate of induction, meaning that we perceive the light. And there's a certain rate in which this happens, and interaction is happening. Like I said, ice cubes melting to water. And if you watch the ice cube melt to water and then you write it down, right? It doesn't mean that that area the ice cube was at like changed or there was something. They're two separate things. They're not two separate things. If you really think about it, humans have a very stupid, finite way of looking at it. A lot of people kind of tap out. They're like, I can't prove the ether. I don't understand it. I don't fully get it. I mean, I'm interested in a way, but I can't get it. But it's sad because in actuality, the fundamental framework itself is a very simple idea. It's a very logical idea where quantum and atomism is antithetical to Occam's razor, right? It just butchers Occam's razor and common sense and logic and rationale. But then you have this very logically coherent Occam's razor idea that there's a metaphysical, there's an immaterial world, there's the immaterial that interacts with the material. And there are things that cannot be quantified because they're immaterial, but it interacts. And much of the phenomena we see comes from that. So again, humans quantify how quickly they see the light effectively. And they're like, oh, that must mean it's traveling from point A to point B. It's just ridiculous. Not to mention, how do you even quantify it? And then is it just a delay in the device used to quantify it in the first place? Do you have a one-way speed? Of course not. So you have a two-way using a reflection of a mirror. Oh, so you just use a mirror that reflects what's already there and you claim that you're quantifying it? There is no speed of light. It's instant. If it's instant, that means it's already there. So if there's a background that's acting as a medium and the light is nothing more than the background itself becoming illuminated in an isolated area because you've introduced energy in a certain area. So it's now disturbed that background, created a reverberation, an oscillation, a vibration. And once you do that, once you create that disturbance, you can see it in that area that was isolated, that isolated area that was disturbed. Like you can think of it like water. It helps you understand it. Think of it like water. And Nikola Tesla said light can be nothing more than a sound wave in the ether. And if you think about it, how could like me lighting this dim little candle with a match be the same as the light from the sun and travel the same? It doesn't make sense. Just logically on its face, it doesn't make sense. And even Nikola Tesla would say that. He said that was one of the primary things that showed him, obviously, that light doesn't travel from point A to point B. It's ridiculous. But we have people now that couldn't even talk to Nikola Tesla, like couldn't even read his writings, couldn't read his favorite book for more than one page, could never debate him, could never, ever, ever, ever claim to be smarter than him, claiming effectively that he's stupid. Don't you see the irony in that? It's getting pretty rich, isn't it? Maybe it's material A and material B. We live inside material A, so we perceive material B as immaterial. Sure, that's an interesting way to look at it. That's somewhat semantical, though. Look into femto photography, very pertinent to the topic. Okay. If you think that light could still be a particle and a wave, though, I mean, man. I think it is non-physical at all. Yeah, I agree. It is not. Well, this is the thing, right? Like the light's just already there. So when you say it's not physical at all, what does that mean? You define it as having a physical interaction within the physical world and blah, 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 blah. People will say energy or mass. It's like, what? Why are you talking about mass? Like what? What is physical energy or mass? What is mass? Conceptual quantification. What is energy? The ability to do work. That's a description of what something does, not what it is. So you can't define energy or mass, but you're going to tell me that's the definition of physical. And then you're going to tell me that light is massless particle of energy, but you can't define energy. a packet of energy, but you can't define energy. Light is neither magnetic or electric, but you cannot properly define magnetism. This is getting weird, bro. And again, I put this in my presentation, but quantum tries to say magnetism is the exchange of virtual photons, and electrostatics is the exchange of virtual photons. Electrostatics is interchangeable with the word dielectric. Isn't it funny that quantum, once again, is crawling back over here, just like with the photon and the electron example, saying that they're the same thing but different versions of? They're crawling back over here saying magnetism and electrostatics are the same thing, just different versions of. That's what the ɪථER says. That's not what Austin says. That's not what Ken Willer says. That's what electrical field theory fatherheads have said for a long time. I put that in my presentation. Again, I dropped a link. I hope people read it. And I'm trying to put this in lots of different ways, so maybe it'll click with people, because I know everyone interprets things a little differently. So it's like, just think about, like, if you have a plate here, you have your slits here or whatever, right? And you shoot light, but really you're just introducing energy, it disturbs it. So then you have the plate over here, and then the light manifests over here. Stupid humans think it means it's traveling or whatever. And then the wave is right here. It's not a wave. Waves aren't things, okay? It's just a disturbance. So the medium's already here. The background, it's already here. Before you click the light bulb or the laser, the freaking light, it's already there. The background's already there. Just because you can't see it doesn't mean it's not there. The background's already there, okay? So it doesn't matter the fact that you clicked this light or whatever, it's just already there. So of course, and until you move that plate, then you're going to have just interaction there, because that's where it is in the background. It isn't complicated. And you know what you find out? In reality, once we really get to the truth of what's going on with the matter, it isn't complicated. Divinity is simplicity. The creator did not try to trick you. This place is ordered. It makes sense. It isn't here to trick you. Right? I think the hypothesis would say, like, sometimes things are simple but not simplex. But the simplicity is divinity. I agree with that. I think it's a beautiful way to say it. Okay? Like, it's just simple. When it's actually true, then you know it's simple, right? It's when it's like simply logical, then you're maybe on the right path. Now, when you claim that light is both a wave and a particle, a duality, which don't exist, that makes no sense, because that means they're two different things at the same time, but that waves are actually just mathematical descriptions. But when we have two slits, a single photon seemingly goes through both of them, collides with themselves to give us a wave interference pattern, or maybe it doesn't, because we can't figure out exactly which one it goes through. But we don't know exactly what causes the wave interference pattern. But it doesn't matter, because when we try to detect it, it doesn't go there. So basically, it's a physical photon that could go through two slits simultaneously, then collide with itself. But then when we try to look at it, the photon knows that we're trying to look at it, even if it's before the slit or after the slit. And then it transcends time, and it can change the fact that there should have been a wave interference pattern, because we actually decide to observe it, even though we didn't detect it till afterwards. It's so stupid. There's no way that's accurate. There's no way that makes any sense. There's no way it's even close to the right accurate explanation, because it's way too complicated, contradictory, paradoxical, and stupid. So we know that it's not legit. Now we're talking about light already being there. See, I am not naive or arrogant enough to think that I will ever fully understand light. But I do, however, think that I can fully understand a framework, not fully understand the framework either, but I can understand light more than what we've been led to believe. Right? And so I'm hoping that you guys are really clicking with this, because it really just starts to make everything make sense. You don't take a picture of the photon. It's electric interaction. And so when you have electrics, again, the photon and the electron, they're just different versions of the same thing. Okay. So there's a manipulation of that medium, of that background, the background medium, yet the immaterial non-manifest medium. We're using that for intents and purposes. So the background that sustains, there you go. Whatever. Oh, what's a background? You know what it is. You know what we're saying. It's a background to the material world. I think some people maybe don't. Maybe it doesn't click with some people. So there's a background that acts as a medium, right? And so the electric response it's the same. Like the electric phenomena, it's all within the medium. So if you're using a detector to detect this photon that you're reifying, then you're introducing a new disturbance in that background. So none of the processes that they use to detect the photon doesn't use something electric. Okay? Well, if you're using something electric to detect the photon, you're now creating an additional disturbance in the background. Therefore, it's going to affect the disturbance that was already there, right? Does that make sense? So that's when you get rid of this wave function, that's just a mathematical construct, but the interference pattern, right? You get rid of it because you've basically, think about it like this. It's going to be a crude analogy, but I think this might click with people visually, okay? So you have, look, my hand's doing this, but light's not traveling from point A to point B. Okay, but it looks like this, right? It's already there. That little like transverse movement, it's already there, okay? It's just sitting here like this. All right. Now, now pretend it's kind of like water, and the water is like rippling, okay? If I come over here and I throw a rock right at where that wave is in the water, if I throw a rock right at it, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? If I walk up to the wave, now this is a crude analogy. Oh, you're talking about material, but now you're trying to, oh my gosh, bro. If you have a wave in water, you walk up and you throw a rock in the water right at where that wave is, what's going to happen to the wave? That additional disturbance in the medium, in the water, is going to interfere with the current wave pattern that was there. That's what you're doing with the detectors and the double slit. Thank you for playing. So anyway, people kind of ask me, what does it even matter? And I'm explaining why it matters. It's starting to reintroduce viability to a lot of observations, tests, demonstrations, and phenomena. We need to come together and understand things. Now, I can understand why people make a lot of like woo-woo claims about stuff, and it kind of triggers people, and they're like, dude, you're giving flat earth a bad look, whatever. But you're not the flat earth god. You're not the flat earth priesthood, whoever they are. I'm not talking to anyone in particular, but there isn't like a selected group of people that dictate what flat earth's allowed to talk about. And you're illusory virtue signaling, as if you're just trying to do it with benevolent motives or whatever, when you do that, is very see-through. Because if you have benevolent motives, you just want people to be free. Because flat earth is their awakening. It's their freedom. They were confined and deceived, and they were put into like little boxes where they can't fully think for themselves. And they were told that they have to think this and they can think. The whole thing about flat earth is we broke out of that, right? So flat earth is not a cult. It's us sitting over here saying, hey, bro, you're in a cult. That's what it is. It's like, hey, oh, bro, get out of the cult, bro. We used to be in the cult too. We didn't know. You're in a cult, bro. Come over here. Now you're out of the cult. It's not, hey, come out of that cult. Here's your new cult. You can only talk about this. My friend Napalm, shout out to him. He made a really good analogy. He said, flat earth is like you come over this like this beautiful cliff or like terrace, and you see this like amazing view. You see like just an amazing view. Beautiful. Say water, oasis. It's incredible. Okay. That's flat earth. It's so amazing. It's so beautiful that you just really want to soak it in. You really want to soak it in and understand it. Take it all in. You might even pitch a tent, camp right there, and really take in the beautiful nature of where you have discovered. That's flat earth. But then you just continue down to see what else is beautiful that you don't know about yet. What some people have chosen to do is build a city there, and then build a government, and then put guards at the gates, and then tell people they're not allowed to leave it or wander outside of it. And here are your chores, your taxes, your laws. And we must stay here and only here within this original foundation we built once we discovered it. This is all there is. No. We're going to keep going. Okay? Now, I hope that made sense. Shout out to my boy Napalm, like I said. So, I think that you guys get it. We need to keep on progressing. And I'm not claiming to know everything, and I know that no one does. And I know that a lot of people don't know most of this information, or even like where to look. And so we should just keep on waking up. Now, like I said, I know why people get triggered, because then they're like, press me like, whoa, what is magnetism? The argument is that ether and magnetism, that's not the same thing. right? And so I was trying to say, well, look, you can science naturally occurring phenomena, and then it supports the framework of the ether. It's not scientifically proving or verifying or validating the ether. You cannot do that directly. It's immaterial. But we can compile information with science on the earth, in the material world. We can compile information that just adds more and more plausibility to the logical framework, the full philosophical framework that is the ether, or even so much information that's falsified a lot of other frameworks, and it seems like that's all we're left with. And it falsifies quantum mechanics, it falsifies atomism and the electron and the photon and the anti-electron. We have all these observations that we can do that falsify those things. We have observations that work perfectly within a different framework. So whenever we see that light is instant, it works perfectly within ether, perfectly, right? And so in that sense, there is a scientific approach to look at all this information, and then you're going to step back and you have to try to interpret it. You have to try to decide which logical framework is sufficient. So you cannot directly science the ether. It's immaterial. Intrinsically, it cannot be scienced or quantified. That doesn't mean that it is not important. And I want people to understand that. When you're like, oh, you might as well just talk about gravity. No, not the same at all. First of all, gravity is logically bankrupt on its face, and it says that you can attribute physical properties to conceptual abstractions, one of which is a privation, which is the absence of, nothing in and of itself. A shadow is nothing more than the absence of light. Well, which is light? Well, anyway, what the illumination is blocked by another material impedance in that instance, but it's the absence of, it's a privation, nothing in and of itself, nothingness, emptiness. That's not a thing. It's just a privation. That's what they interpret space as, right? Effectively a grid system applied to nothingness. That cannot have physical properties. Time cannot have physical properties. It's nothing like that. Now, the reason they're trying to say it's like that is because you can actually prove it. Well, the theory of relativity claims to be science and claims to be a scientific theory, and they claim it's been scientifically validated and verified, and it's effectively definitively true. At least the low-level people do, and that's pseudoscience. That's that which falsely masquerades to be science, and it's nothing like this. We have all kinds of observations that debunk it. Common sense debunks it. Occam's razor debunks it. Right? If there's equal and opposite reaction within your little paradigm, which has actually been pretty much debunked. If there's always equal and opposite reaction, how does spatial curvature not straighten out? And how do you have physical properties within purely conceptual abstractions that aren't actually real? Time's nothing more than the human quantification of motion in the sky. Now, do things move in the sky? Yeah. Is there some difference between right now and right now? Yeah. It's like sequential perception. But time is not this physical, tangible thing in and of itself. Right? It doesn't have physical properties. Okay, so it's nothing like that. And in fact, relativity had to be proposed to replace it. Okay, now this is my point. I agree it's your own prerogative. Maybe you don't want to look into it, but what you'll find out when you do, it's like, whoa, all of a sudden some of these, like this drift makes sense. All of a sudden, like the analemma makes sense. All of a sudden we kind of have an interconnected understanding of what's moving in the sky with us, because we can seemingly have some type of effective translation of motion. It starts to make sense. Well, we have a magnetic field. Okay, well, then the magnetic field logically would be connected up there. There obviously has to be a field of force around Polaris that gives you the motion. And I would say that it's very potentially the throne of the creator or something. I don't know. I don't know these things. But it's important to learn these things. Or not when I say learn these things, I just to try to understand where you're living more so we can maybe progress. And we have like all kinds of motivations, and one of them is energy. All right. So hopefully I said this in many different ways that where people can understand it. That was my intention. So I'll chat with you guys if you guys have any questions or what you want to say, and we'll kind of address it. If you have any questions as to like why does the ether matter, or why does it matter, or anything like that, I'll be happy to talk about it. And then I'll read off any tips on Rockfin, which there are none right now. Shout out to the Rockfin chat. What's going on? Thank you guys for kicking it. So actually, I need to take an intermission bathroom break. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play my song again. Don't get triggered. We have 175 right now. If you want to leave, you can. It'll be like literally 2 minutes. I'm going to go use the bathroom. And smash the like button if you don't mind. And I'll continue to talk to you guys in the chat. If you guys have any question, I'll keep the chat up where I leave. And just at What's It Gets It. So it'll pop up in red, and I'll read your questions once I get back. I'll even throw them up on the screen, and we'll start to chat to wrap this up. And I will read off any super chats or any donations, links to support in the description. And I'm really going to set up something dope for my patrons, by the way. I've never really done much. But we'll talk about that in a little bit. But if you want to support, links are in the description. I will be right back, and then we'll wrap up the show with like a interaction period, and I'll kind of let you guys know what all is going on. And cool. So be right back.
That's for Israel. Wonder is it real? Rappers acting steady high, steady sipping pills. Glorify suicide so they get the deals. Big pharma set it up, had to flip the pills. Control the music industry until the scripts get filled. Geopolitically, yeah, we in the field. That's for Israel. Wonder is it real? Took the way you saw the world, then distorted it. Now you think you wanna rock and twirl somewhere orbiting. Theories disproportionate, the truth distorted quick with a forceful grip. They force a misinfo that we absorbing quick. Took the people's signature to mean extorted it. They forging it if news anchors informant to informing them. There's a surplus, but they tell us there are shortages. Credit economy mortgages, dollar that's supported with empty fortresses. But what's important is this: we courting ships, important gifts, of course it is. But extortion is in accordance with an assortment list of foreign tricks we ignoring, which informing this, informing this. It looked like we were snoring tricked. Pedophilia and the government endorsing it. Yeah, eugenics is exactly what abortion is. You just vilify those insubordinate. Way to matrix engineer, that's unfortunate. Geopolitically, we in a field. That's for Israel. Wonder is it real? Rappers acting say they high, say they sip with pills. Glorify suicide so they get the deals. Big pharma set it up just to flip the pills. Control the music industry until the scripts get filled. Geopolitically, yeah, we in a field.
That's for Israel. I wonder, is it real? What's up, Amelia? 22 people left or something, but shout out to the 153 legends that stayed. Yeah. Took the way you saw the world and distorted it, and now you think you're on a rocket twirl somewhere orbiting. You're just proportionate. Stories get distorted quick. The forceful grip. They force and miss. Info we absorb and quick. All right, let's chat it up. Let's see what questions we got. I'll throw them up on the chat. You added me. Austin, can you describe what a video game character would think about his environment? Like, would they perceive their digital world as having a substrate? Light instant there too. That's an interesting question to try to think about what a video game character would think. I think it's a decent analogy. Like, there is something outside of that video game that created that video game, and they don't have access to it. They don't have access to the software that programmed the game. And so they would start to put together, like, look, there's a lot of design and order to this place, and there seems to be an update that comes here. There's an update that comes and updates this world, but where's it coming from? It's not in this world. And so they'd put together that there's some type of interaction with something outside of the video game, similar to a fish in water, right? So that's my answer to that. Let's see. What's a good say? Is light and magnetism part of the same ether, or are there two ethers? Yeah, so there's just one. It's different versions of, right? Like, if I have an ice cube in a glass of water, are there two different types of water? There are different versions of the water, but they're both water. So yeah, light and magnetism are the different versions of the same thing. It is the same ether. I would say light is an ether perturbation, disturbance within the ether, oscillation, vibration. A disturbance, perturbation, oscillation, vibration, reverberation. We have to use lots of words because we're confined to materialistic misdefinitions, misdefined terms. But I think if we are intellectually honest and we just really want to figure out what's going on instead of trying to win a debate or, gossip and get clicks or have drama or whatever like that, um, you can start to piece together exactly what is being said when you use all the words. And magnetism is nothing more than dielectric dissipation. And so, like, there's pure potential in the ether. The ether is like pure potential, unmanifest, non-manifest, pure potential. And then energy manifests in the material world. And so the loss of dielectricity is the magnetic field, right? Dielectricity and magnetism are also the same thing. Light is dielectricity. What they call the electron is nothing more than a gap in a dielectric field. So there's an intrinsic tie of all this energy, different versions of the same types of energy of the same type. Let's see what else we got here. Let me go a little further. All right, what's it? You see ethereal, the battle for heaven and earth. Or have I seen it? No, I have not seen it. I'll have to check it out. The Battle for Heaven and Earth Biblical Cosmology documentary. I'll try to remember that, bro. This was helpful. Awesome. Good to hear. That's why I wanted to do this. Let's see here. I keep thinking of how a fish doesn't know it is out of water, as if the water didn't matter to its livelihood. That is how I see people nowadays. Very interesting that I had just basically tried to invoke that. Gonna have to do a rewind on this one. Yeah, check it out. We're gonna have awesome shows, by the way. Like I said, guys, at @WitsItGetsIt in the chat, if you have a question or something you want to bring up relative to the subject, of course, and I'll discuss it. Let's see. You're a brilliant lyricist. I love the jams. Thank you very much. I'm gonna try and drop at least a couple songs before Flattoberfest, and we'll perform it there. So you can go to flatearthfestivals.com. I'll actually promote this right now. So I am actually presenting. I haven't decided what I'm going to present, but I think it might have something to do with sort of what we're talking about right now, combined with a few other things. But you can go here, Flat Earth Festivals, and Kai and I are actually performing some music. There's a lot of other people performing and also presenting, and I'll be presenting there. So check it out. Should be cool. A lot of like-minded people come together. It's actually really good vibes. And you just walk across a lot of stimulating conversation. It's fun. Video game characters don't think. Yeah, of course. I think it's just kind of, he's just trying to use like a analogy. I sampled and mixed your song in an art piece on my channel. I'll link to your channel this time though. Okay, cool. Thank you. No big deal. Use it, whatever. I'll make it for people to hear. I don't subscribe to simulation, just throwing out stuff. I use the analogy to try to make the point. New Age science, mathematics, quantum mechanics, and the Kabbalah are the core concepts of scientism. I'll check out ethereal documentary. All right, let's see. People love your music. I think they only left because they thought the show was ending. No, I saw good. I mean, sometimes it happens. Like, people are kind of impatient. If I step away, they're like, "Oh, I'm out." It's okay. I mean, to be fair, after 2 hours, to take a couple minutes is decently reasonable, I think. All your streams are helpful, bro. You're a pinnacle of flat Earth. I'm sure not just for me. Well, thank you, man. Thank you for the very kind words. I think we all bring something different to the table. My boy Anti-Disinformation is dope. We have some good conversations on Discord. Smart guy. How's married life, brother? Happiest I've ever been. Got a beautiful little incubator over there in the other room. A great show. Love the new streamer setup. Thank you, man. Much love. Well, we're gonna get OBS rocking. It's gonna get real dope. We're gonna have different types of shows. Flat Earth show, guest show, just a gravy show. It's gonna be dope. And I think we're going to stream 5 to 6 days a week. Cool. Your understanding reminds me of how Walter Russell explains stuff. What are your thoughts on Walter and Lau Russell? I haven't read as much Walter Russell as I should have probably, but yeah, I definitely like the way Walter Russell explains things that what I have read. So I can't fully condone everything he says or anything, but yeah, we have very similar takes on how it works, like interpretations. Like the electron is nothing more than a gap in a dielectric field. It just makes sense because everything, all fields are different modalities of the ether. And you, like, I know people get triggered by this, but it's like you have to be able to take the framework and apply it over to the world to try to assess it. And if you don't want to, it's cool. What would you? Whatever. In your opinion, when water vapor condenses in the cloud, does heat simply cease to be, or is it given into something else? Yeah. So I would say like pressure mediation in the form of like equilibrium being sought. What do you call heat and the intrinsic relationship with pressure? Pressure mediates relative to what's around it. So does it cease to be? I would say no. It doesn't cease to be. It just transfers. And then, mediates relative to its surroundings. How can the ether be detected everywhere and in everything if the ether is not omnipresent and therefore the ether is the Holy Spirit? I think it could be a characteristic of the creator. And so I get why people get triggered. They call it a religion or whatever, but well, that's just beautiful. It's kind of like how we can figure out there's a creator because we can look at the natural order and we can look at the macro to the micro and we're like, wow, there's a creator. We're still looking at the physical world. We're applying logic. We're trying to figure things out. We're using natural physical phenomena to figure it out. And it points to the creator. This is the same thing, right? And it's beautiful. Is it the Holy Spirit? I don't subscribe to the Trinity. So, yeah, but the concept, like the spirit of the creator, it certainly could be, or a characteristic within. I do not confine the creator into boxes. He could just create a metaphysical realm that he, can access. It's probably beyond our comprehension. That's why I say no one will ever fully understand the ether, but that's okay. It's just the fact that we actually are using our brains in the right way, right? Meaning we have like a philosophically viable worldview where we acknowledge the metaphysical. We don't separate it from the material and understanding. We know that they have an integrated role. It's an actually intelligent, wise way to look at the world. If you know there's a metaphysical realm and it's inevitable, but you try to explain the material world without it, it's very ignorant. It makes no sense. Contact deadmau5 about your music. You liked it a good bit, if you'd like, anyway. Yeah, sure. That's cool. Unless anybody can come up with some way of monetizing any aspect of ether, it will just remain a talking point for people on the internet. Yeah, and the monetization will be very limited, right? Like if you can have energy all around you and if you can understand what energy is and how it manifests physically and materially, then the only way you'd make money off that is just to build the whatever it is that harnesses it or transfers it to us to be usable and perpetual effectively. And then the only cost would be maintenance. And so, yeah, actually, monetary incentive is the primary reason we don't understand these things, that and heliocentrism. Water is observable, so thinking of it as ice is easy. We can't observe ether, so it's hard to understand it manifesting in the physical. Is there a better metaphor to help understand? Maybe like they're all going to be material though. Like metaphor wise, it's all going to be material. The reason I use water is because everyone can understand that like light just being a different modality of the ether that's perceivable, well, the ice cube is melting. It just they're not the same. You have to like I just want people to follow me with the visualizations. If you're looking for visualizations, I may create some visualizations. But yeah, it's not literally melting into water, right? But it's like the light itself is basically just the ether being shaken, right? And then you're seeing it, and then it resides. It goes away. It goes back to its state of equilibrium, back to its pure potential, unless you keep the energy reverberating it, shaking it, oscillating it, vibrating it, disturbing it. I think water is one of the better ways to explain it. So I would have to think about if there's a better way. I could think of less efficient or more crude ways. So that's a good question. I'll try to think about it. You're appreciated. Thank you. Sounded great tonight, Austin, content-wise and audio. Thank you so much. Cammy. Walter Russell is awesome. I agree, Bob. Have you and Kai picked a name yet? Yeah, it's Aaliyah. Aaliyah. So excited for you both. Thank you for all you do. Thank you. If there's a creator, everything's a characteristic of him. Sure, to some extent. Yeah, you have a piece of him within you. Going down. All right, so let me kind of just fill you guys in on some stuff. So I don't want to address the drama too much, but since I am doing this Ether show, and I don't want to just like make it ether all the time. So yeah, like, FED was kind of just like waging war on anyone that discussed it or embarrassment to Flat Earth and all that stuff. And like I said, I hate to even give this any real attention, but I jumped on there today, and I wasn't really allowed to talk and make my coherent points, and I was strawmanned repeatedly and interrupted and insulted and stuff like that. And it's a sad state of affairs now. I don't hold a grudge typically, and I don't hold anything against everyone there or anything like that. There's a lot of hypocrisy and double standards going on. And I think that it's a bad look, especially when you're one of the people that have been called out by name by people with huge platforms like Eddie Bravo. And I almost feel like I got a big bro you. But they've created a paradigm where you really can't big bro them. They live in an echo chamber. So all that being said, what I'm going to do, what I've decided to do, and hopefully you can help relay the message for me, and I will personally reach out as well. And I know a lot of people might not think this is a good idea or not want to see it or think it's a bad look for Flat Earth, whatever. I disagree with you. I've thought about it. I am officially extending a challenge to Nathan Oakley to debate me about the ether, or he'll detach himself from atomism, but about the ether on a neutral, fair platform. The reason for it is, let's be honest, it's not going to happen. But with the amount of arrogance going on, I think that this is going to be beneficial in the sense that you'll see he won't do it, and it'll kind of pull back the facade, because everyone knows he's going to have a tough time debating me fairly, as with that whole panel. But together, when they can talk over me and mute me and not let me speak, they're really, really, really smart, and I'm stupid. And like I said, I hate to feeding this, and I'm just doing this for a few minutes, but I'm just going to rip back the facade. You waged war numerous times. I asked you to stop. It's unacceptable behavior. So I'm challenging you to debate to end it once and for all. We all know that won't happen. But if you can man up and do it, then let's do it. I don't think we should look at it as a bad thing for Flat Earth. It shows that we're not an echo chamber. We all don't think the same thing. If you could come and have a respectful conversation, you clearly disagree, and you think ether is actually very, very stupid, and you classify it as fanaticism, you should be able to come and debate it. And I think maybe it would bring a lot of attention to Flat Earth and some of the deeper conversations that Flat Earth leads you to. So there's that. Like I said, very unlikely. But, put your money where your mouth is. I think I've earned the respect to be able to, within this community, to jump on someone's show, to be able to freely talk, and freely express myself fairly, where I can get my point out coherently as I try to let other people do. And when you're constantly making videos, regarding me, mentioning me, shorts about me. I'm not going to show any favoritism because someone knows the earth is flat. I throw the scope on you, just like I did Simon Dan, just like I'm going to debate Professor Dave, just like certain other people in the truth community got really close to. And there you go. I think we all know he's not going to, because if you can't control the entire narrative and not let someone speak, then he'll never actually debate. And I'm not trying to sound arrogant, but frankly, I think I would intellectually eviscerate and destroy him at every single turn of the conversation and prove me wrong. But it won't happen. Let's be real. He's scared to ever do that. But just extend the message to him, and maybe he'll pipe down a little bit, because he keeps on attacking a bunch of people. And I'm kind of tired of it. And I'm also going to point this out. They were running. I'm just getting it out there because I'm going to avoid the drama. I don't want to, please everyone, don't feed up on it too much in the chat and make it bad vibes. I'm not trying to do that. I'm addressing this publicly just to do it and get it over with. It was suggested to me, FED. So I just listened to it for a second. I heard him just taking their victory lap about how they destroyed everyone that dares utter the word ether. They're absolutely intellectually inferior, stupid people that don't understand anything. They're basically religious. I think they used to believe in evolution and gravity. And so they used to believe in evolution. So now they just freak out about anything anywhere close to what they think is materialism, because they're just confused and they're stupid and they don't know that it's actually relativity. These are the same people that used to really believe gravity. And so Arwen said that, who literally used to defend gravity on their panel all the time, from my understanding. I don't watch the show. So anyway, I decided, they're like, all these ether people are scared to come in here. Where'd they all go? Why can't they all come in here? And then Oakley's talking about, oh, well, when you get to the point of the conversation where it's obvious that you lose and there's nothing you can do, that's when people start to not come, and they realize. I think we're at that point where they realize they just got destroyed and they can't really do anything about it, that they're losing. I'm like, okay, I'm going to go on there. And then I went and jumped on and tried to jump on. It wouldn't let me in the room. I said it was full, even with a few people. I'm like, so you guys are bragging about how no one in here is talking about the ether, defending the ether, but you closed the room off? So then someone sent me the link to the queue, and I started spamming the chat. Not spamming it, but typing like, wow, why you got to close off? So they sent me the queue. I went and waited in the queue to be brought into the live stream. And after about 15, 20 seconds, I got booted from the queue. And only until someone said it on the air, so it was out in the ether, then I got brought on. Then I wasn't allowed to talk. Then I was strawman, berated, insulted. You know the deal. And now one would say, well, you asked for it. You've been there 2 times before. Now it happened both times. Touche. And in addition, the after show was very, very telling. And if you're honest, then you'll post that, and we'll get to see that very telling moment where you didn't know what to say. Then you just ended the show and left. Because it was much more chill and you weren't interrupting, because the vibe was so much chill. You really didn't feel right jumping in, trying to interrupt, super toxic like you were during the main show. So post the after show. If you think you're really bad at, hey, if you're all about clicks, you're all about drama, you're all about getting people to look at you with attention, what better than Witsit Oakley Showdown on Modern Day Debate or a fair, neutral platform? Anyway, that's all the time I'm giving that. You were just stoic while Nathan completely embarrassed himself. It just was very frustrating, yeah. Okay, we can move on. I just wanted to throw that out there. If you guys would like to go let him know, like, are you going to debate Witsit? Witsit said he's going to debate you on a fair platform. Now, we all know, come on, we all know he's not going to do it. He would never. Because it would shatter the facade. Anyone knows anything about me, I'll debate anybody on a fair platform. Professor Dave, going to get this work. Neil deGrasse Tyson, get this work. You name it. I'll go to your freaking platform if you're big enough, because we're in this to try to make waves and ripples for the truth and to combat the disinformation. They blocked me already, man. Yeah, of course. Thumbs up if you aren't a bundle of sticks. When is the Professor Dave debate happening? Don't know exactly. But like I said, I just now got to work. Everything settled in. I'm going to get the OBS rocking. We do have to take a short trip one more time on mid-September. So I'll be gone for a couple of days, but we'll be doing a lot of streams between now and then. And like I said, I just really got to get all the OBS working. I'm also having to try to figure out how to kind of pay all these different bills right now, because I I maxed out some credit cards and took out a loan to pay for a bunch of the stuff that you see in the stream setup. But I wanted to go all in, and like invest in it and believe in it. And so I'm going to try to be dealing with that here over the next couple of days, trying to figure out exactly how to come up with some of the stuff I need for that. But we are getting to where we're almost settled in. Once I can be consistent, hopefully everyone can kind of help rally behind the stream, and we can manage to keep it afloat and make it a real thing that manifests as like a consistent dope show. And I know the setup looks way better now, and you're like, this is an awesome stream, but I have plans to make it like a professional looking show all the way throughout, with different names, different time slots, different types of guests, more and more prominent guests coming on, like very professional is the idea. And so there's that. Should be really cool. And we should be getting pretty close to where we can pull that off consistently. Then, like I said, Karen B and I are debating next Friday. I think that Kai and I might be doing a debate relatively soon as well. And Professor Dave and I should be debating. A lot of people like my debates and ask me to do them. And so that's why I continue to do them. But I'm kind of narrowing them down to, well, Karen B asked me to, and that's my homie. And Professor Dave, obvious reasons. But I won't just be debating any and everyone. And I won't just be debating Flat Earth anymore. I'm going to extend it out. Thank you very much for the super generous super chat. I don't want to say your name wrong, but I'm going to try. ᴘᴏ Wody. Thank you very much for the $50 super chat. Very kind and greatly appreciated. Also, a lot of people are asking me about a P.O. box. So I'm going to try to set up a P.O. box. So I'm supposed to be kind of having a meeting, an online meeting with someone tomorrow to look at some pretty interesting stuff. So I have to do that. Then I have to go take this U-Haul back. Then I'm going to try to set the PO up tomorrow, then come back and try and set up a stream. And so I'm, anyway, we're going to get it. We're going to get rocking out. I don't quite want to say the name for the shows yet. Unlikely someone tries to steal it or whatever, but I just don't want to ruin it. I'll bring the names out for the shows here soon. And should be cool. Why are you debating Kai and Karen B? I'm saying I'm debating with Karen B, 2v2 against two Globers. They asked Kai and I to debate a little while ago, so we might end up jumping on there again if Kai's down for it. And then I should just be debating Professor Dave in the relative future. And we'll really put the pressure on him. Honestly, if you got some time, go get in his comments. But we're gonna have to approach that a certain way to really get like his fans where they're like, bro, you're scared. They're running around with the narrative that I'm scared of Professor Dave. I'll just expose them with the emails from Fight the Tight Shirt and the DMs. Everyone knows I'm not scared. Everyone knows that. Everyone knows who's scared. Everyone knows who's trying to make sure it's on an unbiased or a biased, unfair platform. That's what someone who's scared does. So we'll just apply pressure to him, even with his own quote unquote fans. So there you go. Hook what's it up with the sweet tip on Cash App. $ what's it gets it. What he said. It's my boy JJ. We chilled in I don't want to dox you, bro, but we chill on the tour. He's cool. It's my homie. He gave me some dope like hemp cream. All right, cool. So yeah, we got a lot of stuff coming. Like I said, I'm gonna try to make some. Got you talk too fast. Some people hate when they come here and I'm talking slower. Milwaukee finals. Yeah, we chilled at the NBA finals. It was cool. The cops were trying to come all at me sideways. I'm like, "Are you triggered? We didn't go to the moon, bro." That was pretty funny. And that's where the girl said, "Oh, the Earth is flat. The Earth is flat." That was a cool time. The best CBD rub on the flat plane. Yes, sir. Oh, yeah. So I was saying I'll send out the P.O. box because people said they wanted to send me books or send me stuff or whatever, little gifts. Like little, I don't know, like seeds or whatever it is. So I'm going to set up a P.O. box. So it should be cool. And a lot of people are asking me for a reading list, like book suggestion list. So I'll create a list of some of the books that I have or that I've read and lost or gotten rid of. And I'll create a list of other books that I'm wanting to get as well, because people want to know kind of what I'm looking into or what to read about certain topics that we cover. So we'll do that. Should be cool. All right. Anyway, thank you guys for chilling. Thank you guys for kicking it. I didn't really get donations the last. I think I got one, but they asked not to read it out. So yeah. Anything sent on Cash App and PayPal, unless you don't want it sent, unless you don't want it read. Thank you, Dave, for the Cash App. Actually, you sent one last time as well. So shout out to my boy Dave. Thank you very much. My boy's on Discord as well, 24/7. Oh, I also created a Discord for one of the new shows that we're going to be doing. So that should be cool. You're going to have to be brought up on stage to do it. Just cordial, respectful exchange where you're not allowed there. So yeah, it's called the Miswits, or not just called Miswits on Discord. And I'll try and drop a link. I'm just kind of worried about, I don't have it really set up too much where I don't want people coming in there acting crazy, because people always got to ruin stuff, you know what I'm saying? Anyway, all right. Thank you guys for kicking it. I think we're going to wrap it up. Like I said, if you send a donation to support the channel, the best way to do it is either on Cash App, $WitsItGetsIt. On PayPal, you can go to paypal.me/inaworld. Or you can go to, you can send it to witsit@protonmail.com on PayPal. Those are two different things. PayPal.me/inaworld, preferable probably. Doesn't really matter. And am I wrench worthy, sir? What's it? Maybe. Remind me next time, because I remember you for sure. You're consistently here. Austin's computer is a major light show. Oh yeah, thank you for reminding me about that. So I do plan on kind of creating a different camera angle where you guys can kind of see the setup from like the other angle. You can see what's going on, and the computer's awesome. So again, shout out to Bob. It's super cool. The computer's awesome. It really is. And I'm so thankful for that. I'm glad you reminded me. Anyone that helps donate to the fund to raise for the computer, check your email over the next day or so, and I will be contacting you. And I will also be setting up the stream, and I will be shouting off the people. I will be thanking the people, like the promise is said, over $30, over $50. We're going to hang out with a little private stream. And then I plan on setting a lot of stuff up with Patreon, show computer. I can't just show the computer because my webcam is literally like, it's like where it's at. But I will find a way to show the computer next time. I could even just take a picture, even though it reflects a lot. And I want to create a different angle. I can use my phone as a second webcam, and I'll just create a second angle. I think that can be cool to go back and forth. I have a lot of good stuff planned. It will be a learning process to make it better and better in the quality. I'll have to look back and see. It looks like the video quality could be better right now. So there's a lot of stuff that I can I'll try to figure out to make it better and better over time. Anyway, so we'll do the private stream. I'll email everyone that did donate. And I'm very thankful for that. I want to thank you guys, and then shout you guys out by name like was promised, and then we'll all hang out. And then I'll plan on setting up something new for my Patreon. I haven't fully decided exactly what's going to come with that, but it's going to be dope. I'm going to like really hook up Patreon. I never try to do that. And I've kind of been like, well, I don't do this for money. And if you want to support me because you love me, or you support my content, or support what you like, or it goes away, not because you think that you can like tell me what to do now, or like, you could send me 50 grand. If you think you're going to tell me what to do, I'd send 50 grand back. You know what I'm saying? And that's still the case. Like if you're going to, that's not my pure motivation, but I do have a baby on the way. And if I'm going to put this much time into it and really build all these streams with all this gravy and all this different stuff with all this time, and 2.5, 3 hour streams and 5 to 6 shows a week, obviously the only way to feasibly do any type of amount of content production at that rate would require me to be able to support myself with it. And I have a baby on the way. So I know some people get annoyed or triggered or whatever talking about this, but I just want to cover it. That's it. Anyway, so Patreon will be dope. there'll be some perks there, and I've never really done that, so I'm gonna really hook up Patreon, patreon.com//What'sItGetsIt. I think that's also in the link. And so there you go. There's all the kind of boring stuff. From now on, I'm just gonna it just links in the description. I'll say it. I just wanted to let you guys know kind of what's going on. We're in the process of finally getting it set up. It's gonna be dope. I actually do have a lot of big plans, and we're gonna bring some epic guests on, where you guys are gonna be like, "Whoa, how do we get that? How do we get those people?" We're gonna bring on some super dope guests, and we're gonna have some really cool content. So you guys subscribe. I will also probably be uploading everything to Odyssey. I think if I can simultaneously stream to Odyssey, I'm gonna start doing that. I am on Rokfin. Shout out to all the people that are on Rokfin. You can go to Rokfin as well for uncensored. But I'm just not about my content having a paywall too much. So I'm with Rokfin, and I'll drop some exclusive videos. I still have like crazy stuff from the tour I might put on Rokfin exclusively that couldn't be on YouTube anyway. But my live streams are never going to be like that. If we cover a topic that can't be on YouTube, if just too point blank going to get censored, then we'll do Rokfin, but still maybe Odyssey. I'll put some exclusive content on Rokfin, but not too much. So yeah, because I just think it's important that I give my live streams for free. This is just kind of the housekeeping part of everything as we're wrapping it up, but it should be cool. And I think so Odyssey, I think maybe Rumble, and maybe Twitch. I don't really know. And I will be getting on TikTok as well. So TikTok, ⴤ I think I have never uploaded anything, but I do have an account on there, I think. I've just never used TikTok at all, but I'll start getting on there. So we're going to start making some ripples. We got some big players behind the scenes that want to kind of collaborate and kick it and do things, or maybe don't want to fully be known, but there's a lot of moving parts that are kind of all coming together. It's going to be cool. So with all that being said, I hope you guys enjoy the show. The question is, does the ether matter? Does ether matter? It does matter in many ways. It's a philosophical framework of logic, and it's one of the only logically viable frameworks that can actually explain observable phenomena. I've yet to hear another one that can. A single photon can't go through two slits simultaneously, collide with itself, and then is sentient and can transcend time. That's psychopathic, and magnetism is not the exchange of virtual particles, nor is it material. This is where people say word salad, but really, magnetism is nothing more than the geometric conjugate expression of the magnetism and the dielectric field itself. They're the same thing. It's basically the ether in different modalities. And you could maybe say dielectricity is pure potential of dielectricity, or the ether is pure potential. And you have like the dielectric realm of pure potential, some would call counter space, and it's just conjugate geometric expressions of centrifugal convergence, centrifugal divergence, and centripetal convergence. And I know that may sound complicated, but we'll cover magnetism sometime in the future, and we'll get a bunch of visualizations. I'll get you a bunch of visualizations for the ether. You can make your own determination once you can understand it, but if it doesn't click with you yet, reserve your judgment, because maybe that's why you guys aren't understanding why it's so important. It hasn't really clicked with you, and it doesn't make sense to you, and you can't fully grasp it. And people are like, what is the ether? What is the ether? Ha ha ha. I'm going to try to help it click for the people that are honest about it and want to figure it out. It's clicked for me in many ways, but I'm still trying to figure it out. And so, yeah, you guys can just come along for the journey. It should be cool. Why does it matter? Well, we've been lied to about energy and what energy is. We've been told just a description of what something does. We've been lied to about magnetism, electricity, electrostatics. We've been lied to about the earth and the mechanisms within, the vortex of the ether that was known about for a long time. We've been lied to about quote unquote speed of light. We've been lied to about a bunch of things. It helps us to begin to understand things. It's a logical framework that reintroduces viability to understand where we live, where that was forcibly removed from you via indoctrination and quote unquote education, which are synonymous, interchangeable terms. And so basically that's what we're doing. We're trying to wake up and have a more logically viable worldview where we can interpret phenomena and where we can actually begin to maybe pursue a better understanding of energy and electricity. So maybe we can make the world a better place, or at the least, those of us that wake up, we can begin to be self-sustainable all the way to energy, and water, etc. And start to look into things like, well, you can use magnetism to filter water into acidic and alkaline water. And there's a lot of cool things that we could figure out if we continue to grow, continue to understand, continue to try to understand within these worldviews and these frameworks that have been hidden from you for nefarious motives. There you go. Yeah, the computer's awesome. Thank you guys for it. All right, so I love you guys. Thanks for kicking it. It's been a long time, 2.5 hours. I'm over the drama. Miss me with that. Keep keep talking crazy, the scope is just gonna, I got mini magazines. I'm trying to keep it cool. There you go. So I love you guys. Seek and speak truth unequivocally. The weak find contentment in the consensus of ignorance. So smart people don't care what dumb people think. Informed people don't care what ignorant people think. Strong people don't care what weak people think. And in fact, when they attack you for his name's sake, rejoice, for they did that to all the people, all the prophets before you. It just means that you're doing something right. And if something's not accepted across the board, it might be closer to the truth, because truth is never really accepted. And just don't ever fall into the confinement of materialism, or even philosophies misguided based on the confinement of materialism. You may not be a materialist yourself through and through, but you may have a few things that you overlooked, you didn't realize, actually are built within the confinement of materialism that you just have yet to wake up to or look at. And just always stay open to new truth. None of us know everything, including myself. Just continue to grow. I think that life is a journey of growth and wisdom, and that is the purpose. And we always got to keep going. My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. So there's my closing. I love you guys. Thank you guys for kicking it. Again, if you want to support the tour, $, Gets It on Cash App, Witsit at protonmail.com and PayPal, or paypal.me/innerworld. You can also go to Witsit Gets It, or patreon.com/Witsit Gets It. Until the next time, like I said, seek and speak truth unequivocally. I love you guys. Peace out.
That's for Israel. Wonder, is it real? Rappers acting say they high, say they simple pills. Glorify suicide so they get the deals. Big pharma set it up, had to flip the pills. Control the music industry until the scripts get filled. Geopolitically, yeah, we in the field. That's for Israel. Wonder, is it real? Took the way you saw the world, then distorted it. Now you think you wanna rock that twirl somewhere orbiting. Theories disproportionate, the truth distorted quick with a forceful grip. They force a misinfo that we absorbing quick. Took the people's signature, that mean extorted it. They forging it, if news anchors informant to informing them. There's a surplus, but they tell us there are shortages. Credit economy mortgages, dollar that's supported with empty fortresses. But what's important is this, we courting ships important. Yes, of course it is, but extortion is in accordance with an assortment list of foreign tricks we ignoring, which informing this, informing this. It looked like we were snoring tricks. Pedophilia and the government endorsing it. Yeah, eugenics is exactly what abortion is. You just vilify those insubordinate. Way to matrix engineer, that's unfortunate. Geopolitically, we in a field. That's for Israel. Wonder, is it real? Rappers acting say they high, say they simple pills. Glorify suicide so they get the deals. Big pharma set it up just to flip the pills. Control the music industry until the scripts get filled. Geopolitically, yeah, we in a field. That's for Israel. Wonder, is it real?